It is Sunday night, East Lansing, Michigan, July 24th. Come on in, gather around, gather around, gather around. My name is Jim Comparoni, publisher, SpartanMag.com. This is called Spartan Mag Live. Michigan State fans going to be here discussing Michigan State sports. Actually, they're going to be doing it somewhat virtually. The way this works is our subscribers at SpartanMag.com over at the Underground Bunker message board, which is the premium forum, big part of SpartanMag.com. The Underground Bunker message board, it is the church of what's happening now for Michigan State sports. It is the daily narrative. Go to SpartanMag.com, the Underground Bunker, talk with Michigan State fans from all over the universe, talking about Michigan State sports, having a good time. Earlier today, Sunday afternoon, I invited Michigan State fans over at the Underground Bunker message board to post questions at the Underground Bunker message board, and we will field those questions here, mailbag style. Been doing it here for a couple years, 3 years. Really got rolling with this website and Spartan Mag Live during the pandemic, making the best of that crazy pandemic thing. And this was born. We've got close to 7,000 subscribers here at Spartan Mag, the Spartan Mag channel, at the YouTube channel for SpartanMag.com. Give us a thumbs up. We want you to become a subscriber if you are not already. If this is your first time witnessing this nonsense, grab a chair, grab some refreshments, settle in, have a good time talking Michigan State sports. We're getting close to the outset of preseason camp. SpartanMag.com. We'll be there covering it. Big Ten Media Days coming up in Indianapolis. I think it's Indianapolis. I think I heard it's Indianapolis. I'll be down there Wednesday. Michigan State will be taking the podium. Who do you have there? Xavier Henderson, senior safety. Peyton Thorne, junior quarterback. Who's the other one? Help me out on who the third one is. Anyway, Paul Konerdijk from SpartanMag.com. He'll be down there with me. We'll be covering whatever it is that Mel Tucker has to say, whatever Thorne, Henderson, and I don't know who the other one was. You have to remind me. I forget. But anyway, you can go to SpartanMag.com. We got the coverage on that about who the three Michigan State players that are going to be there. I'm sure someone's going to post it here in a moment. The posts are always like 45 seconds behind time. And I rely on you guys with your messages to post to keep me straight on all the goings on. And I'll offer some analysis, some insight, some opinions as we have some fun talking about Michigan State and football season. Getting ready to roll. Oh, yeah, Jaden Reed. Thanks a lot, No Iris. Jaden Reed, Matthew Johnson's got it. Of course, Jaden Reed, number one, transfer from Western Michigan, one of the best wide receivers in the Big Ten. When you add his special teams talent into the fold, one of the best all-around playmakers in college football for the 2022 season, I would have to believe Jaden Reed. That's going to be the case for him. So we got some questions. We're going to be taking those. Also, over in the comment section, feel free to offer some suggestions, some comments, some criticisms, analysis, whatever you want to throw in there. Sometimes we open up the phone lines. Not sure if we're going to do that tonight or not. We got a lot of material to cover. Haven't been here in 3 weeks. I've been tending to my baseball problem, my baseball addiction as a coach with a youngster. Not so young anymore. Those days are been a lot of fun. One more year next year, and then you guys will have me full-time all the time. You're going to get sick of me. But in the meantime, doing some fatherly duties, having a good time with it, family stuff. Hope everybody, all the Michigan State fans out there, having a great summer, especially those of you in the state of Michigan. You know that I'm biased toward you here in the great state of Michigan. Those of you might be up north watching it right now. Maybe you're on your way back from being up north. I've not been up north enough this year, just once back in May for a high school baseball tournament. Looking to get up there the first week of August for maybe a day or two right before practice starts. Then I'll be right back here in East Lansing covering Michigan State football. Then if no one's looking, I might sneak away, go back up there for a quick jaunt one more time as we get the most out of the summer season that we can here in the Great Lakes State. Almost football season. Big Ten Media Days. I'm ready for it. Mel Tucker with Michigan State Spartans, one of the surprise programs in college football last year, 11-2, won the Chick-fil-A Bowl. You know that. Want to say hello to Matt Dorsey. Matt Dorsey was in town last week with his fine son, Mason. Mason was in town for Michigan State soccer camp. They stayed here at the headquarters for a couple nights. Had a great time with them. And one night, we rewatched Michigan State versus Penn State, the snow game. Thanksgiving Saturday, Spartan Stadium, one of the more memorable home environments in recent Spartan Stadium history. Michigan State. The great thing about that game, among other things, is both teams went to the air and had success through the air. Michigan State with some mistakes in the defensive backfield, which became too commonplace last year. But exciting game. Kenneth Walker bouncing back from the Ohio State game when he tried to play injured. Somehow that worked against him in the Heisman Trophy balloting. Well, Ohio State shut him down. They didn't shut him down. He was hurt. I'm not saying he would have done much if he were healthy, especially with the way that game got away early, and Michigan State would not have been able to go with the running game. But, I mentioned that, and Matt Dorsey mentioned that here a couple nights ago. He said, hey, they didn't shut Kenneth Walker down. He carried the ball 3 or 4 times in that game and had some nice gains. And I do remember one gain in particular that really impressed Kirk Herbstreit. But then he was injured, came off the field. But to hear the idiots that vote for the Heisman and some of the people that talk about college football on national stations and so forth, according to them, Kenneth Walker was shut down against Ohio State. No, he was hurt. He tried to play hurt. Had a couple nice carries, had to come out. He would have been better off not playing that day. Then he would have gotten a pass from all the idiots that vote for the Heisman. Anyway, you got me started. It's 2022. College football's getting ready to go. We have questions, mailbag. We're going to be checking those out here momentarily. In the meantime, wait a minute. Don Straight. Don from DeWitt. Wow, Don from DeWitt. 2 rounds of applause for Don. Thank you, Don, for your generous personal sponsorship of the show tonight and your support of SpartanMag.com. Over the years, I hope my voice holds up. I think it's allergy season all season. Don says, Don on board treating myself to, what's it say here? Woodford, Reserve, Double Oaked. Nobody does it better, Pope. Thank you for your support. Enjoy that. Woodford Reserve, Double Oaked. One of these days, Don, I'll sample whatever it is you're drinking. We'll meet somewhere. We'll get that going. And we'll just see what we'll. And I'm a lightweight. I got to warn you about that. Didn't used to be, but I am now. Anyway, question number 1 from Macklin JB out of Rochester, Michigan. It's question number 1 in the mailbag. He says, which current Michigan State commitment in the 2023 class are you most excited about? He's asking for one. I keep saying I need to see video of the running back, Reese Cano from Texas. He would have to be under consideration. I got to look at him more. Was he from New Caney, Texas? He's a top 200 national recruit. Running backs, of course, are impact players. They get the ball. They get the publicity, deservedly so. They get a lot of the attention, so I got to take a closer look at him. I've looked at him here and there, but I've not really studied him. I want to take a look at him also this fall when his season kicks off. Some of the people I would mention: Andrew DePape, the defensive end from Iowa, number 132 in the country, 6'5", 240. Decently quick takeoff for DePape. Decently quick head and shoulder fake. Excellent ankle bend. Can turn the corner. DePape is a pass rusher who can turn the corner. For a pass rusher. He's quick on his feet to avoid blocks when necessary. And when unblocked, he can really turn the corner, change direction for a big defensive end. So DePape is interesting. He needs to, like all these guys, he needs to mature into being a college-ready athlete. There's hurdles. So he's a guy with great physical ability. But some hurdles need to be cleared there just in terms of getting ready to be a college guy within a college program. Chance Rucker, the corner, I think is underrated on this. He used to be a 4-star, has been down to a 3-star. Apparently didn't run a good 100 meters or something. I assume that's factual. But when I look at him on film, he's big, and he breaks on the ball with quickness and acceleration and change of direction, and he can change his hips. I'd be surprised if he's quote-unquote slow. I think that was why he was demoted out of the 4-star status. I don't know. I'm going to have to put Matt Dorsey on that to try to check some 100-meter times for him to see if that's factual with Chance Rucker. I mean, I don't know. 6'2", 175. looks like he runs pretty well. If he can play corner at that size, I mean, his footwork looks pretty good to me. I'm interested in him. I got to check out some more of those 100-meter times that apparently weren't great. I don't know. But, I mean, I look at that guy. I see someone who's playing down in Texas with Chance Rucker. Really nice acceleration and balance on the 2 kickoff return for touchdowns. As a fullback on the kickoff return, he's an up man. And I see sustained, smooth speed from him on film. And he can really turn his hips and change direction as a big cornerback in press coverage at the high school level. And his team had him play a lot of press on the short side. He utilizes long arms to execute an offhand jam really well. He's advanced in that technique for a high school prospect, and the size is just a plus. And I thought he looked very quick in off coverage, breaking on the ball. His footwork to cover he was in press coverage, and one time on his film, a really good receiver ran a double move, and it was a terrific double move. But Rucker's quickness, breaking on the first fake, and then changing direction and covering the deep ball for a pass breakup. And he didn't do a speed move, didn't panic or anything, but the double move by the wide receiver was really good, and Rucker was on it. Just on it. Length, feet, agile, quick and fast, poised. I like Rucker. You know, Clay Whedon, the offensive lineman from Tampa, Carrollwood, number 128 in the country, number 23 in Florida. Really light on his feet at 6'6". Light on his feet and reacting to an inside counter move as a high school offensive tackle. He's big, square-bodied, like you like your guard to be, offensive guards. Keeps his heels planted, can really bend his knees to drive block. Interesting. You know, I don't take, the tight end, Brendan Parachek out of Dexter, 6'6", 230. I wouldn't take him out of the conversation. He committed to Michigan State back in January. If he were still uncommitted right now and visiting Michigan State, Notre Dame, Penn State, there'd be a lot of publicity around this guy. He committed early, so you stopped talking about him. 6'6", true tight end, ranked number 10 in Michigan. Best tight end in Michigan. Tight ends are important for the Michigan State offense. They're looking for good ones. They offered him early. They got him. I like Parachek because he gets up to speed quickly to threaten that seam downfield. Remember when Lincecum used to do that? Get up to speed quickly, get downfield? I think he can do a little bit of that, but he's bigger. He's quick. Smooth hips on the short outcut to the flat. Parachek, the tight end from Dexter. You watch his basketball film. He's a quick leaper. He doesn't have to gather himself. And when he plays basketball, he's a quick leaper. That translates well to the football field. And, his high school film as a junior, Brendan Parachek out of Dexter, he has some make-you-miss agility, elusiveness after the catch. He plays some defensive end, too. And he's a quick takeoff as a defensive end. Michigan State's not looking at him as a defensive lineman, a defensive end. But when I look at his defensive end film, Parachek, I think, looks like a MAC-level scholarship defensive end. He'll be a tight end at Michigan State. But when you look at his basketball as a quick leaper, you look at his defensive end work for a tight end. He's the punter at Dexter High School. That's a well-rounded, I'd call him a big-time athlete. And there's one time where there's this fumble on defense, and his change of direction, like his sudden movement and change of direction, he doesn't come apart and flail around to get on the ball. I mean, it's just smooth to pounce on a fumble. Sometimes you look at things like that, just an athletic move to pounce on a loose ball, and athleticism shows itself. Parachek has that. As a defensive end, he gets low, and he powers up. He's low as a defensive end, and when he makes contact, he's strong up through it. So I'll bet in the weight room, I'll bet his power clean is really good. So I'll bet he's good in the weight room. And, on offense, Dexter ran a delayed tunnel screen to him a lot, and really did some great things with him. And they ran inside the 5-yard line. They ran a jailbreak screen to him inside the 5, and he high points. It goes up, shows those basketball hands and leaping ability. Really interesting and strange to see, unique, and it's creative to use a jailbreak screen inside the 5-yard line. But it's almost like some people run, a fade, to go to guys that can really jump ball type situation. They ran a jump ball internally in a jailbreak, went up high, got it, touchdown. Creative use of this guy. Early in his film, I thought that Parachek was a little bit of a body catcher with the ball, but then later in his film, later in the year, he started using his hands better. he's heading in the right direction there. As far as blocking, there's not a lot of film of Parachek as a blocker. I want to see that this fall a little bit. He had pretty good down block on his highlight film. Really put a good jolt on an inside linebacker, heels down. Got into him pretty well. Comes off with a flat back, so I have no doubt that he can, bend, get low, use leverage, that power clean strength we talked about earlier. Parachek is good. Even though he committed early and people aren't talking about him, Parachek's a good one. I still have to look at Riscano, the running back in Texas. Getting that commitment, Cole Dellinger from Clarkston. I like him. He's rugged. He's strong. He's a guard. He's athletic. He keeps his heels down. Comes from offensive line stock. And it's good that for Michigan State, it's a feather in Michigan State's camp that they were able to go into the Detroit area, small town north of Detroit, and get Cole Dellinger. Of course, his brother plays at LSU. A lot of other programs like him. But he believed in the program, believes in Chris Kapilovic. So that was no small task for Michigan State to get Dellinger. And don't want to discount him either. I'm talking about all these players. I'm going to wait to answer that until I see Riscano a little bit more. I think Parachek's underrated. I think that Rucker, I thought he looked like a 4-star corner when he committed, which he was. Again, the 100-meter thing I'm not sure about. Question number 2 from Orange County, California, Spartan Fan 81. He says, where do we go from here with offensive line recruiting? We are on the verge of striking out on some big-time plan A's for various reasons. Just curious how we plan to reset the board. Good question. Michigan State was looking very strong with offensive line recruiting just a month ago. Had some big-time visitors coming in during the month of June, especially the offensive line positions, but they're kind of escaping Michigan State's clutches. Samson Okunlola was a 5-star out of Massachusetts. Chase Basantis, top 100 from Ramsey, New Jersey, committing today. I think he committed to Texas A&M. I didn't even check it out. I assume he committed to Texas A&M. Let me look that up. You know what I did all day today? Among some other things, did a little bit of work, a little bit around the house, a lot yesterday, but also I went back over the spring scrimmage. Why the spring scrimmage? Well, that's the last time we've seen Michigan State's football players in a public setting. And, yeah, he committed to A&M today. No surprise there. So I've got, I've been telling you guys I was going to go back over that film and really study it to have some more opinions about some of the Michigan State players, especially the transfers, getting a look at them for the first time. So we'll be touching on that a little bit later today in the show, SpartanMag Live. But as far as the offensive linemen go, Chase Basantis, top 100 guy, big timer out of New Jersey, committed to A&M today over Michigan State. Peyton Kirkland, Orlando, Dr. Phillips High School. We talked about this on Underground Bunker message board all week. Michigan State was seen as the leader for a long time. Then things kind of flaked out a little bit in the last 48 hours before he committed, I think on Friday. And by that time, we all knew he was going to Texas. And he wanted everybody to believe that he was going to go to 5 other schools, maybe Miami, maybe Michigan State. Did not mention Texas as a finalist. And then, boom, commits to Texas. He was looking for a shock factor. And I know that he was disappointed in some writers. I'll say it, Jason Killip, Jason does a great job covering Michigan State recruiting for us over at SpartanMag.com. He was talking with Peyton Kirkland a lot, and Peyton was kind of Peyton had heard that some people had predicted that he was going to go to Texas, and he was like upset about that because he wanted to surprise people. Got to wonder about that. High school recruit. I mean, he's going to do what he has to do. It's his life. He's a great high school football prospect, and that's the way he wanted to handle it. He was going for some shock value. I'm not sure why. A lot of these recruits nowadays, they're going after the NIL big, and the best way to capitalize on NIL is to have a lot of followers on social media. One way to gain more followers is to get a lot of programs interested in you. Was he trying to ramp up his social media following? I don't know, but I've never seen something go down quite like that. He hired an agent, his family did. And things were steered toward Texas. I don't blame him for choosing Texas. I mean, Texas is paying their offensive linemen a lot. That's well documented. His mother's moving to Texas. So if you're moving there and your son has a chance to play for the Longhorns and the doors that can open up, hey, that's a good decision, good program. I don't know how strong it's going to be with Sarkisian trying to get that thing straightened out. But if things don't work out, just go back in the portal, make some more money. So I'm sure I wouldn't have made the best decisions with things like that. When I was 18, if I had six figures in front of me, name, image, and likeness, and so forth. But anyway, Michigan State was seen as the leader, had a great visit to Michigan State, had a lot of family and extended family on his official visit to Michigan State. Family coming in from Chicago. They loved it. His aunt cried when they left. She liked it so much. But official visits are only part of it now, small part of it. And I heard Seth Greenberg talking about this on Sirius Satellite a couple days ago. Seth Greenberg, basketball coach, former basketball coach at Virginia Tech and a few other places, South Florida. And he was saying he's been talking to basketball coaches. And they've been saying that on official visits, recruits aren't even much interested in, academic tours and so forth. It's name, image, and likeness. Not a big surprise that it's landed there. And we knew that'd be the case as we observed this and cover recruiting. But I figured that, to recruit some of these guys, Michigan State would have to match the money. Matching the money at A&M is difficult. Matching the money at Texas is difficult. They've got a ton of financial backing. But for the programs that you recruit against, if you can match them with name, image, and likeness, then it reverts back to how well they like the coaches in the visit. So the visits are still important, but it's preliminary. A lot of it's coming down to the money, and I guess why shouldn't it? But, was it Mac Brown? Had an interesting quote earlier this week, coach at North Carolina football, saying that, that money, it looks good or whatever, but if it's $70,000, $80,000, whatever, that money's going to be gone in 6 months. And then what? How do you develop as a player? What kind of networking are you getting while you're in college? Do they think about those things? I'm not sure. But name, image, and likeness running a lot of this. And Michigan State is not poor in that area. Michigan State is strong in name, image, and likeness. Well organized. They plan to go after a lot of these guys strongly. But still, I think it was estimated that A&M paid $25 million for their class last year. So Michigan State can go head-to-head name, image, and likeness against a lot of programs. But Texas A&M, Miami right now with John Ruiz, billionaire throwing a lot of money in there, wants Miami to come back strong. Miami's strong in name, image, and likeness. Oregon very strong with Nike getting involved. Nike doing some creative things for high school recruits and what they can give them, what they're saying they can give them after their college career is over once they become professionals. So, Oregon is a program that is in purgatory a little bit. They're kind of trying to get in the Big Ten. Don't want to be left behind in the Pac-12. You know what's going on there. So Oregon wants to show they're still a heavy hitter, and they're hitting heavy with the Nike influences. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, wait a minute, that's supposed to be illegal. You're not supposed to use name, image, and likeness as a recruiting inducement. Yes, that's true. You're not supposed to. So, do you use a third party to talk about those things? Those things come up in during the visits and the conversations. They can't talk about them publicly. Coaches can't talk about it, but it's happening. Everybody knew it was going to end up that way, right? So Michigan State is well situated there. I don't know if it's all being communicated like it is in other places where I think Miami are just like shamelessly saying what they're putting out there. Samson Okunlola from Massachusetts, I'm hearing headed to Miami, and Miami's going to do big things for his pockets. That's the word there. So the question is, where does Michigan State go from here? All right, Michigan State is still involved with Miles McVay out of East St. Louis. He's going to be deciding on August 11th. And, Michigan State and Oregon. Michigan State, Oregon, Alabama's in there a little bit. But Oregon, if they've got room and they decide they want him, I think he might be visiting Texas also at the end of July, but Texas is kind of filling up with offensive linemen. McVay's visited Michigan State a number of times. He likes it, but name, image, and likeness is going to come up. In Oregon, if they go full throttle, as strong as Michigan State is in name, image, and likeness, you're not. It's real difficult to battle with the Nike machine right now and what they're doing name, image, and likeness for Oregon. So Oregon is recruiting well. They've beaten Michigan State and others for some big-time players. They're in for Miles McVay. And they've got a first-year head coach that I'm sure no one can even mention what his name is right now. Nothing against him, but it's Nike, it's name, image, and likeness. It's free agency. So Michigan State's going in there for Miles McVay. We'll see. Staten Ramel from Alabaster, Alabama, 6'7", 305, number 25 player in Alabama. Looks like Michigan State, Tennessee, Penn State, maybe Clemson for him. Michigan State's liked him for a long time. 3-star guy, but on Michigan State's board, they have him up there as a much coveted offensive tackle type. Can Michigan State go down to Alabama and get someone like that? Tennessee is real strong with name, image, and likeness. Also a well-funded collective that they've been wielding. So we'll see what goes on there. But Stanton Ramel from Alabaster, Alabama, has been very quiet about his recruitment. Kind of a polar opposite from Peyton Kirkland. Taliafi Tala from Sandy, Utah, 6'7", 280, number 5 player in Utah. Jason Killip thinks Michigan State has a strong chance with Tala. Michigan State, good job. Michigan recently offered, so Michigan State, keep an eye on him. Michigan State still apparently is communicating with Charlie Simons from Connecticut, Watertown, Connecticut. And he's committed to North Carolina State, but Michigan State's still in there with him. So, Michigan State's got commitments from 3 offensive linemen. We talked about Dellinger and Whedon plus Jonathan Slack out of Detroit, but they need to hit that offensive tackle position a little bit. Ramel's in there, Ta'ala's in there, Simons is in there, McVay's in there. So Michigan State's not really, doing the TKO thing in the offensive line like they were positioned to potentially do coming out of the June visits. But Miami doing their thing with Okunlola, Texas doing their thing with Kirkland, and A&M doing their thing with Besantis. So Michigan State got visits from top 200 recruits, and they tangled with what we're going to see in this era as the strongest recruiters, I think. A&M, Texas, Miami for now, Oregon for now. Can Oregon and Miami continue to go like that? I would imagine so. As long as Nike's involved, as long as the rules are what they are. As long as Ruiz is involved in Miami, which looks like it's going to be that way for the long haul. Interestingly, I don't know where Alabama and Clemson have been great in recruiting the last couple of years, and Georgia. Georgia's still going to be strong. But you hear, Nick Saban complaining about needing guardrails and everything is supposed to be set up for competitiveness, and everybody laughs like, come on, Saban, your roster's been anything but competitive. It's been ultra competitive, and no one else has been competitive over the last 10 years. He's squirming around because his program cannot spend with A&M and Texas. Alabama cannot spend with A&M and Texas, and probably not Miami either, and not Oregon. So Nick Saban's days of making sure that his roster is just better than 99% of the teams he ever plays, which is what he set out to do when he went to LSU and what he said to do when he came back to Alabama. When he went to the NFL and everything, there is true parity there, and there's a draft and free agency. Didn't do so well there when everybody had similar rosters. Didn't do really well there when he couldn't just browbeat people as much. Came back to college, went someplace where the tail could wag the dog. He's been the best college football coach of all time. Good for him. But now that this is changing, they'll win the national title this year, and then I wouldn't be surprised if he retires. Question number 3, Don from DeWitt. He says, hi, Pope. Given the recent craziness in the Kirkland recruiting, where do you see this heading? Is it going to come down to who has the fattest wallet in the future? The NCAA Advisory Committee agreeing with the no limits to transfer portal approach also makes me fear for the future of the game if the NCAA runs with that. And he also says, can you imagine what locker rooms are going to be like with all this taking place? Good question. And yeah, so you have Peyton Kirkland and these offensive linemen going to Texas. I'm sure they're all going to be pretty well compensated. But Okunlola, let's say he goes down to Miami and he gets big money, the biggest I've heard, except for that quarterback going to Tennessee, I'm sorry. Okunlola, he goes into the locker room and he's making all this money, and you've got seniors and juniors that have been there for 3 or 4 years. They'll be making some money also, but these bonus babies that are on their way in, that's going to be another test of coaches. Which coaches can handle a locker room with that dichotomy taking place? Michigan, to its credit or its discredit, doesn't seem to be really all that mobilized in NIL. They're recruiting pretty well still, but you don't hear them battling with some of these other programs throwing around NIL promises. You hear that some of their upperclassmen are being compensated, as they should. So they may not have that type of dichotomy. Maybe that's the direction they're going. But Don raises a good question. And some of these programs, like Oregon with a brand new coach, bringing in these bonus babies. Miami with a brand new coach, bonus babies. I mean, Miami's been good in the past throwing money around. Let's not kid ourselves. I'm going back 30 years. But you bankroll and budget those type of recruits coming in with that individuality. And then in this particular sport of football, which requires sacrifice, ultimate team sport, how can that all go to? How will that all mesh? I mean, we looked at Memphis basketball last year. They went out, spent a lot of money, brought in Amani Bates and some other guys, had all kinds of perceived talent, but the team was just a crap show. They were a mess. Bates sits out, they become better. On a grander scale with football, are we going to see that? I don't know. But that is, the coaches have so much on their plate as it is. Now dealing with that, the managerial aspect of that, that's going to be another thing that tests these college coaches and these coaching staffs. And once again, the ones that can handle it well will rise up and do well. Maybe that's what Saban has in mind. Could he handle it? Yes, he can handle it. I mean, Saban, he would have been, the greatest, at a lot of things. He would have been one of the all-time great third world tyrant dictators if he had that job. He would have been a great prison warden if he had that job. Great college football coach. All right. So he might be able to handle that type of dichotomy, but it's going to be interesting to see how that all pans out. And Don says the no limits transfer makes him fear about college football. I would agree with that. This thing about unlimited transfers. You can transfer not just once, but 2, 3, 4 times. Then you just have no roster continuity, and fan interest will suffer from that, I would think. And that'd be the only professional sport that's like that. In the NFL, Doug Karsh made a good point on 97 Won the Ticket earlier this week. I heard him talking, saying that, in the NFL, you have contracts, 2-year contracts, 3-year contracts, and there's a salary cap. College football, there's no salary cap, there's no contracts. So college football has become more purely professional free agent than pro football. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing for the players long term. It might be tough for them, might not be a great thing for their development, but it's good to have that money up front, I would imagine. But for the sport, college football still needs to be about the emblem on the side of the helmet, the name on the front of the jersey. If you have a front of the jersey name, like Michigan State, some schools do, Sooners, whatever. Not all schools do. But college football's been a rah-rah team, old college try type of thing for 100 years. That's what's made it special, right? So there will be some fans that are going to be put off by the direction it's headed. Am I concerned about it? I am a little concerned about it. Should I be concerned about it? No, I'm supposed to be an objective reporter, but that's bull. I mean, I got a business too, right? SpartanMag.com. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little concerned about fan interest dissipating in the years ahead. I think it's possible. Unintended consequences. Anyway, over here, let's check it out in the comment section. Somebody named Make the Best of What's Still Around puts number 1 up there. So I think he means he's happy that he's number 1. He wants to play the one. Eric Iverson says, go green. Matthew Johnson says, good evening, comp. Old Tuck, the bell cow. He's here from Austin, Texas. No Iris says, sup, comp. So we got our starting 5. Make the best of what's still around is the point guard. Old Tuck down low in the middle. Eric Iverson, he's running the 2 as he should. Matthew Johnson, he's on the other wing. And no Iris is the stretch 4. That's their starting lineup. Joe Marsh saying go White. Brad Fashenko saying checking in from Austin, Texas. Another one from Austin. Sparty Football Network says yo. Richard Kustoff says go White. Tyrone Garland checking in from Chicagoland. Say what's up, Comp. Go Green. Eric M says hi, Comp from Roswell, Georgia. Nick Harrington, big Comp. How we doing? I'm doing all right. Chris Martinez says hit the like button, fam. I agree with Chris. Thanks a lot. Give us a thumbs up. Helps with algorithms. Helps get Michigan State fans aware of the nonsense going on here tonight. And as we head toward college football season, we intend to do this more regularly, more often, and expanding what we do. Got some ideas. Can't talk about it right now. I've been talking a little bit about it over the years, but I've got some more specifics on the direction we want to go with these things. Let me go ahead. I'm going to send out a tweet to let people know that this nonsense is going on, so bear with me here for a moment. Also, go over to SpartanMag.com, become a subscriber at SpartanMag.com with great coverage, recruiting and analysis, and coverage of Big Ten Media Days coming up next week, and football preseason camp in August. I'm tweeting right now, Spartan Mag Live. Join us here. All right. Link, there it is, tweeted. Thank you for your patience. That's out there. That'll bring in some more ne'er-do-wells. We always appreciate to have those guys in there. Gordon Tonona, he's a Spartan Magger. He's here. Tim Hughes says, good evening from Traverse City. Come, go green. Traverse City. I'll bet Traverse City is nice right now. Old Mission Peninsula. But it's nice. Sunset's already down. Campfire's going on a Sunday night. An up north weekend coming to an end, but some of those people are going to keep rolling. I'm sure Tim Hughes is still rolling. Tim, tell us what you did this weekend in Traverse City. Tell us what you did. Did you hit the bay a little bit? Did you go over to Sleeping Bear Dunes? Or just stay away from the tourists? Just buckle down a little bit? Throw a line in the Boardman River? Tell us what you did. Will Stallworth says, hey, we missed you. Go green. I'm getting kind of worried about the recruiting in football. What's on there? What's going on there? You can be worried. The only thing to be worried about is that Michigan State was gaining traction toward having like a top 10 class, maybe even better than top 10. And it looks like that's not going to happen. The level of visitors they had in June was a top 5 level. Michigan State, in terms of star average, is comfortably top 25 right now. I think a top 20 class is still probable. But in terms of finishing this class top 10 and defeating some of these powers and some of these NIL powers, a lot of people thought that was a foregone conclusion. It was kind of heading that direction. I was kind of in the need to see it to believe it camp. I think Mel Tucker's an excellent recruiter. I think he's done a great job organizing the entire outfit. I think he has good people working for him. And they presented Michigan State in these visits, from what I hear, in a very, very positive light. They had it all organized and presented it extremely well, but just not quite able to finish against some of these NIL powerhouses. So Michigan State will circle back and decide what they want to do. They'll learn from it, maybe get stronger in the near future, maybe get stronger between now and signing day in December. They knew it was going to be difficult. Now they're kind of know what they're up against a little bit more. They knew it would be steep, but other people thought that Michigan State, it was just heading freight train, 1,000 miles an hour. It's happening. It's on. This is going to be the best recruiting class since the beginning of time. If you watch this every week, I was more reserved about it. Need to see it to believe it. I've seen a lot of good coaches come in and try to recruit at Michigan State back when you couldn't pay players. And Michigan State has a lot to sell, but still to be able to go down south and, carve out some of the best that are down there. In the case of Chase Basantis, that's a New Jersey guy, but you ended up recruiting against A&M and Southern Powers anyway. So still more to be learned there. So there's nothing to be upset about with recruiting unless you really had your heart set on a top 10 class and just knocking out these commitments and just putting together that fairy tale like everybody thought could happen. But Nothing to be depressed about. A lot of it's still going to come down to player development and evaluation. Depending, which 4 stars do you want to go after? Which players, as you budget your NIL allocation of resources, do you want to spend a lot of money on offensive linemen? I don't know. Offensive linemen are the players that, in my opinion, over the years, are the ones that are the hardest to evaluate an offensive lineman at age 18 and what he's going to look like when he's 22. And also, they're the ones that break most often. Just the nature of the game, the collisions, shoulders, collarbones, ribs. Offensive linemen, you recruit 16 of them, and you kind of hope 8 or 10 are still around after 4 years. So the return on investment for offensive linemen might not be where the smart money goes. It's ridiculous that we're talking in these terms, like salary cap things, because not every Michigan State, I'm sure, has NIL plans. They can't come out and say it that way. Every school does, but you've got to allocate where you're going to put your money. And when we talk about the locker room and the current dichotomy internally, you probably have to take care of some of those guys also. It's changed. Question number 4, GD from East Lansing. He says, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the 2023 Michigan State basketball recruiting class. He asks specifically about Jeremy Fears, Xavier Booker, Devin Royal, Jordan Burks. Devin Royal, wing forward from Pickerington Central, 6'6", visited Michigan State, official visit in June. And all indications it's Michigan State and Ohio State. Here locally, they feel real good about it, and they think Michigan State has a good chance, they being people in the building. Other people I talked to with the ear to the ground a little bit more in Pickerington think that it's going to be Ohio State. I don't know. I've not talked to him, but flip a coin on that one. Number 90 in the country, Devin Royal, probably a little bit better than that. Xavier Booker, 6'11", Indianapolis Cathedral High School, number 2 ranked player in the country, about Rivals.com. Paul Konadijk went and watched him play last weekend in Milwaukee. Had a couple articles over at SpartanMag.com about him. And also a lot of spicy discussions over at the Final Forum message board. That's the Final Forum. That's a basketball-only Michigan State basketball message board at SpartanMag.com. Xavier Booker, good prospect. I'm not sure that he's what a number 2 player in the country normally looks like, in that he has a ways to go. He has habits he needs to change. He needs to play harder, needs to run harder, needs to rebound harder. But what he has at 6'11" is a good shooting stroke, good straight line speed, good ball handling ability. And, those skills at 6'11" are extremely rare. That's why he's ranked high. But he has a long way to go to be college ready. He's got a good attitude. He's a smart kid. Izzo likes that about him. But if he commits to Michigan State, pump the brakes a little bit. He's not a guy that checks all the boxes. He's got good skill that flashes really nicely at times. I think he was like a top 70 or top 80 guy this time last year. The ceiling potential is high. He, Konadijk compared him a little bit to Marcus Bingham. I think he's like Bingham in terms of what his ranking would be a lot of years. But Bingham was, a little more awkward. This guy's got a better handle to his game, but he's got to change a lot of habits. He's a good kid. He probably will, but playing hard. So number 2 in the country, don't expect Amari Stoudemire, like, right away, right? But in Michigan State, still trying to go after him. Purdue's in there, Indiana's in there, Notre Dame's in there, Auburn and Gonzaga. Duke offered him, but there's indications that Duke's not recruiting him very hard. Jeremy Fears, guard, La Lumiere, Northern Indiana, helped Team USA to, under 18 World Championship 2 weeks ago. Leader, dazzling, skillful, excellent point guard for the future. Jordan Burks, Michigan State's shown some interest. They came down there and watched him. 6'6", Kissimmee, Florida, Central Point Academy. Offers from Illinois, Ole Miss, Marquette, Florida, Virginia Tech. took an official visit to Ole Miss, Old Mississippi. I don't like to call them Ole Miss. What's so great about, what about Ole Miss are Mississippi people proud of? So Mississippi, I know Faulkner, I guess. But that's an old. All right, so Illinois, Mississippi have offered, visited Mississippi. He's interested in Michigan State. Michigan State's not offered yet, I don't think. Michigan State went down and watched him work out. So he's on Michigan State's radar, Jordan Burks is. But still early with that recruitment. Question number 5, Omnom from Plymouth, Michigan says, let's talk something different. Let's talk about something different than the offensive line. He says, everyone seems to have forgotten about the secondary. He says, what grade would I have given the secondary last year, and where do you think they'll be this year? Which change do you think impacts the grade the most? 1, the transfer of Amir Speed, or 2, the combination of Mel Tucker and Harlan Barnett coaching the defensive backs? He says, side note, Jim, I commend your bravery to be public-facing, considering the vitriol currently coursing through the message boards right now. Well, I'm at the message boards checking things out, but I don't really, not really affected by it. I try to inform people, but provide some analysis, some insight. But one thing, you're not going to see me get too overly emotional with positives or negatives, so it's no big deal. I know that subscribers get emotionally all over the place, and fans do. That's what they're supposed to do. They're fans. They're fanatics. And you don't need me being a fan, getting all crazy about it. When Michigan State wins, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, what a great day. No. And when they lose, I'm not going to be like, fire everybody, we all suck. I'm not going to do that, right? So, what grade would I give the secondary? Not good. Dead last in the country in yards allowed through the air. Number 10 in the Big Ten in yards allowed per attempt, which I always say is the more important stat. And for 2/3 of the season, pass defense was good enough, but then it really went off the rails against Ohio State and Purdue. And it stayed bad against Penn State. And you had blown coverages there, blown assignments, more of the same. And you saw Mel Tucker with the grease board taking over the sideline. The defensive back meeting sideline in the Penn State game. When that happened, I figured someone's days were numbered. Travaris Tillman ended up being the person taking a job at Georgia Tech. Nothing against him, but it's a talk show, right? They'll be better off now. Barnett, proven. Mel Tucker taking over corners, proven. Those two working together will be the first time they've worked together, I think. They might have been together at LSU 100 years ago under Saban. But, yeah, they'll be better there. Just that right there is going to create better connectivity, better same-pageness in the defensive backfield. It doesn't mean that they'll have anyone that can run with Jackson Smith-Ignigba for Ohio State on a deep go route. I don't know. Not many teams in the country will. But same-pageness will be improved. Amir Speed gives them some ability there. Brantley's back will be a year older. Will he be more durable? Ronald Williams, I think, has a chance to have a really good season at corner, presumably. Marquis Lowry brings back some more experience. Henderson at safety was excellent for 2/3 of the season last year. Played the last half of the season with a real deep thigh bruise that was limiting. Played through some pain. Angelo Gross has to get better at the other safety position. And he made mistakes in the Penn State game, made mistakes in the spring scrimmage. Good football player, tough guy, tackler, but the ability to read things and just the knack you need at safety, if it's football IQ, whatever you call it, he didn't have it last year. Now, he'd been a corner in high school, was a nickel as a freshman at Michigan State. They move him back to safety because he's not quite quick and fast enough to be like a corner or even a nickel, but he hits hard, so theoretically could be a good safety, but really was a rookie back there as a safety. Good kid, doing his best. He needs to take it up a big level for the whole safety net back there for the entire level, for the entire 11 pass defense to be as good as they expect it to be. Linebacker pass defense is going to be better this year. I thought last year linebackers were getting out of sorts. Spacing was kind of wonky. There was a play in the spring scrimmage where Michigan State was in man-to-man on defense, and the linebackers were in zone, and it was Halliday and Snow, and it was a crossing route. I think it might have been Noah Kim. So it's man-to-man. He's looking for the crossing route, and the safeties are just perfectly spaced, and Noah Kim's waiting for him to pass into this window and that window. Ends up being a coverage sack just because the linebackers were, I know it's Michigan State against Michigan State, but it was just nice to see linebackers dropping into coverage and doing things well. So I think linebacker coverage is going to be better. I watched, like Brule, speed, man-to-man with Jeremy Bernard on a deep over route, running with that wide receiver in the scrimmage. Now, Jeremy Bernard, was he hitting the Jets full blast? Maybe not. Do you want to put a linebacker on a wide receiver? No, you don't. But it matched up that way. And my point is, Brule looked fast. Fast for a linebacker on that play. So when they do match up a little bit, that'll help also. So they can't get worse in pass defense, right? Pass rush last year, Michigan State was among the best in sacks, but the coaches lament the fact that they didn't get consistent pressure to affect the quarterback in other downs. Now, they accumulated a lot of sacks because they didn't get off the field. So if you're playing more downs, you're going to get more tackles. You're going to get some more sacks just on volume of numbers. And Michigan State played, I think, over 1,000 defensive snaps, something like that. I think they played more defensive snaps than anybody in the country. So when that happens, you're going to have numbers no matter what. So it might have been a little misleading in terms of Michigan State's pass rush effectiveness last year. You can't just look at sacks. On a down-in, down-out basis, pass rush was pretty good, but it wasn't consistent enough. Now you lose Panashuk. Who else do you lose? Drew Jordan, he was not that big of a deal in the pass rush. But it's not like they've got that Shalik Calhoun type of proven pass rusher. So, Pietrowski's going to do what he can do. Watching that spring game, Brule was stand-up defensive end in passing situations here and there. So was Jacoby Windman. Jacoby Windman had, 5.5 sacks last year at UNLV as a linebacker in passing situations going up to the line of scrimmage or down to the line of scrimmage, however you look at it. As a stand-up pass rusher, Jacoby Windman's got some stuff. He's got some upper body agility. He's got some strength. He's got some shoulder dip moves, turn the corner. Windman is going to have an impact in the pass rush. Brule a little bit also probably. Pietrowski here and there. He continues to get better. They lose Beasley to graduation also. Good pass rusher. Brandon Wright, we'll talk a little bit about him also. So, pass rush by committee, is that such a thing? Usually when you hear something is by committee, it means you don't have somebody who's good enough to do it by himself, which is usually not a big positive. With these guys switching back and forth and staying fresh, can they get something out of Pietrowski, Brandon Wright, Brule, Windman? Something, but I don't think it's going to be a plus unless they can just scheme it up real well. And you've got Brandon Jordan factor coming in too. He's the pass rush whisperer. He's working with a combination of potential guys. So if they don't have Shalik Calhoun and Julian Peterson and Mark Gastineau emerge for the old timers out there, don't blame Brandon Jordan. He can only work with what he's got. They've got some pieces, but a lot of projects, really. Brandon Wright, former running back's project. Pietrowski, high school linebacker. They like him, but, he's not going to be Kenny Willekes, I don't think. And Willekes was a project. Anyway, that's the name of that tune. Let's see here. Let's go back over here to the comments area. Actually, let me, what do I got here? I need to pause I need a new water. Give me a minute, and I'll be back. tell you what, that's something you normally never want to do in a live broadcast. Just walk away dead air. But you guys are Spartan fans. You can handle it. You're tough. You're ready for the season. All right, let's go over here to more comments from in the comments area. Remember, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Richard Kustas says, keep it under 3 hours, Pope. I'll try. Where are we at right now? We're at almost at an hour. Mr. Bowman says, hello, guys. Matthew Latham says, go green. Football season not far away. Gordon Tonona says, give me 5 teams you will buy stock in and 5 teams you will sell. Good question. I'm still going over my Athlons preview issue. I know you can go all around the internet and gather information on teams, but I like the Athlons preview. And yes, I write the Michigan State pages for the Athlons preview. But what I like about the Athlons preview is that every page in there is written by a beat writer. The Miami Hurricanes page is written by someone who covers Miami. Almost, and there's some that do more than a couple teams, but basically it's a beat writer. You go to the Utah page, it's someone that covers Utah. Michigan State page, I wrote it. Not that I'm great or anything, and Phil Steele does a great job trying to memorize everything. But I love Phil, but he doesn't know as much about Michigan State as I do. He doesn't know as much about Miami as the guy who covers Miami. That's why Athlons is, in my opinion, the best. So I got to go over. I'm still looking at it. With Ohio State getting a new defensive coordinator from Oklahoma State, I was really starting to get a little bearish on Ohio State. Last year, losing 2 games, almost lost the Rose Bowl, got far behind in that game, came back with great offensive talent, but I still can't believe that they had Kerry Coombs as a defensive coordinator. It really makes me question Ryan Day and the decisions. But going in with Knowles from Oklahoma State, who did a real good job with Oklahoma State's defense, I'm assuming Ohio State's defense will be a lot better. Their offense is going to be good. They return like almost everybody, right? So I wasn't sure about the direction of Ohio State, but I'm not gonna call for a bear market for them. Good question. I'm not ready to answer that yet, and it's not like I'm usually all that great at that anyway. But I'll keep that in mind as I continue to listen to things and take in information heading into the college football season. 5 teams I would sell. Michigan State's got a lot to prove. I know they're preseason top 20 in a lot. I think Athlon's there. I don't know if they are in other magazines or not, but Michigan State's bringing back Peyton Thorne and a few people. Michigan State's got to make sure. Last year they really overachieved. They got everything they could out of that roster, right? And, Kenneth Walker gave them great explosiveness, and so did Speedy Naylor. So that part of it, to try to, that explosiveness just covers up for so many other problems and so forth. Michigan State needs to, they're going to do what they can, of course, but is Michigan State, in recent years, like last year, Iowa State and North Carolina were newbies, like their preseason top 15. And I know Michigan State's had a lot of success in previous years with what Mark D'Antonio did, but this is a brand new program. It's the same program, but it's a brand new iteration of it, right? So Michigan State needs to make sure they don't have the season that North Carolina and Iowa State had last year, and that's possible. People are going to be shooting at them. They have a lot to replace, but... So I'm not going to say Michigan State's a team I would sell for this year, but I could see other people saying that. I don't know. So I'll keep an eye on that one, Gordon. Good question. It's a great question, and I had some thoughts about some teams in the SEC and so forth, but it's not coming to mind right now. And around the Big Ten, supposedly Penn State's going to be a little bit down this year. Michigan, I still have to look at them. Will they be as physical? They're losing some leadership. They'll have a quarterback controversy. Excellent tailback. I don't know. Spartan Marinelli 87 says, we are going to kick some butt this year. Going to miss K9, though. Tim Hughes says, Will S. 9 4-stars. 2023 class so far. We'll be just fine. SpartanMag is king, says Spartan Marinelli 87. Appreciate that. Mark says, you can smell football in the air. I can't yet. Tell you what, I took a little bike ride today, and it rained last night. Finally, we haven't had much rain around here. Rain, wet trees, puddles. It just smelled like the North Woods. It was nice. Richard Kustas says, Connor Cook. I don't know what he's talking about, Connor Cook. Thanks again to Don Strait with the personal sponsorship. I'll make sure. Oh, here's one. Chris Martinez. Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your personal sponsorship. And if you do a personal sponsorship like that, throw a question in there, and hopefully I'll see it in time. I can get to it that way. Let's take that out of focus a little bit. Whoop. Oh, now I messed up everything that was supposed to happen. Look out. I'm going to drag this in. You guys don't mind this, do you? A little OCD about this. Look out. I'll leave it like that. Chris Martinez, thank you. Let me go through here real quick. I don't see any others, but I appreciate certainly Chris Martinez and Big Don from DeWitt with your support. Make the best of what's still around, says number 37. I don't know what that means. E-Money J says, I'm excited for MSU football and basketball. Chris Martinez says, Comp, is your work in any of the preview mags like Athlon? Yeah. It's brainwaves. You caught my brainwaves. Yes, it's in Athlon. I think it's page 120 and 121. I wrote the Michigan State part. Tim Hughes says, Comp, what about Bai Jobe? Highest ranked 2023 recruit? I think he is the highest ranked recruit, defensive end, Oklahoma. Good athlete. Got to fill out. Got to get strong. Still a little bit of a project, but I'm going to look at my notes on him. I think I've got some in here. Maybe I don't. I've got them somewhere, but they might not be right here. Anyway, he does have that ability to turn the corner, which is so hard to find, and that's what makes him uncommon and valuable. I had notes on him somewhere, but I'll just leave it at that. Tim Hughes, Brad Who says yes at Chris Martinez. He wrote 120, 120 in Athlon. Thank you, Brad. Todd H. Any more info on the 5-star who visited last week? We have a chance of getting him. I don't know who you're talking about. If it's Besantis, didn't get him. A&M got him. No, I don't see Michigan State getting a 5-star at this point. Will Starworth says, follow up to my question, was the photo shoot of the goats and cars, etc., too early for only one season, or do you think we need to have another season like we just had to have guys fully committed? No, the photo shoot stuff, you just you promote your program, you bring out goats and Ferraris and try to draw attention on social media. That's what that's for. So you don't need to win before you do those things. That's just the way Michigan State's going after it. Chris Martinez says, do you think AVS will redshirt? I don't know who AVS is. I'm not good on acronyms and initials. Chris Martinez says, thanks, add Brad Hughes. Gordon Tonona says, who is AVS? Thank you. Oh, Van Sumeren. Chris Martinez. Alex Van Sumeren, freshman defensive tackle. From where? Where's he from? Crosswell, Lexington? Is that where he's from? Somewhere up in there. I should know that. But one of those hyphenated Essexville Garber. I knew it was one of those. It's just Garber now. Up in toward the thumb. Defensive tackle, possible, but with all the things that are changing, redshirting guys, I think it could help a little bit. But Michigan State at defensive tackle, you've got Simeon Barrow, you got Slade, Maverick Hansen. Jalen Hunt is still around. By the way, Jalen Hunt made a big play in that Penn State game, and I kind of forgot about it until I watched it again last week. Made a big play on a 4th down stoppage. Got into number 73, the center, and the center was waiting for him. It's not like he took on the center, and the center wasn't prepared or surprised. Center was coming off on Jalen Hunt. Jalen Hunt got into him. Bull rushed him, knocked him back. I think someone else made the tackle. Big 4th down stoppage. Big play in that game. Jalen Hunt, the biggest play of his career. But Jalen Hunt is so up and down, mostly down. But they're trying to, keep that pilot light lit with him. Keep that pilot light lit. And He showed ability on that play. Came in as a 4-star recruit from Belleville. Had a lot to learn. So he's still around. Mallory's still around. I'm not sure Mallory played at his best weight last year. He lost a lot of weight and looked good, but lost some strength to go with it. So they try to put more weight back on him. We didn't see Mallory in the spring game. We didn't see Jalen Hunt in the spring game. 3 proven defensive tackles already, plus you have Hunt, plus you have Mallory. Can Van Sumeren get in there? Can he pass those guys? I thought Van Sumeren looked pretty good in the spring. He didn't play in the scrimmage. I'd have liked to have seen him in the scrimmage. Van Sumeren was great at the T-shirt camps as a young guy, and was dominant with his high school film against limited competition at Garber's schedule. Very intrigued to see what it looks like when he puts on pads and goes against college athletes. I've never seen it. I went to practice a few times this spring, saw a little bit of drill work, but really have not seen him go against J.D. Duplain, Matt Carrick, Nick Samac. I don't know what that looks like. So, will he redshirt? Good question. I don't have enough frame of reference right now to give an educated opinion or guess on that one. Gene Ridenour says, thanks for coming on, Jim. Made my night. Chris Martinez, again, thank you for the super chat contribution and personal sponsorship and the tip jar contribution tonight. Let's go back over to the mailbag question. I don't think we're going to go phone lines tonight. We did last time. We'll get back to that in the future, but we got to get through some of this information, some of these questions and so forth. What do we have here? Muddy32 from Frankenmuth, Michigan says, please break down more of the 2023 commitments, particularly Reese Cano, as you keep saying you need to watch his film. Guilty as charged, Muddy. Guilty as charged. My bad. I haven't watched his film yet. I mean, I've watched a little bit of it here and there, but I've not really watched it closely. What do we have here? Reese Cano. Nope, I don't have. So, you caught me again. I did finish watching the spring scrimmage. And when I watch it, I'm not just like watching it. I'll watch a play, and I'll watch all 22 guys on the field and what they did. I'll rewatch the play 22 times. That's why it takes a while. It didn't take me 3 months to do it. I just kept putting it off because I had other things to do. But today I wanted to get that done because there's some really good questions out there. For instance, somebody asked a question on the Underground Bunker message board about Brandon Wright because I posted something about him, things that I liked, what I saw about him. And I posted that on the Underground Bunker message board a few days ago. And I was like, Brandon Wright, over under for sacks. I think I put it at 5.5, but I like what I saw in the spring scrimmage, building on what he showed at the end of last season with some good pursuit speed, having an impact as a pass rusher late in the game against Penn State and also in the Peach Filet Bowl. Former running back, still learning the craft. Now he's working with Brandon Jordan. So Brandon Wright getting some time. So somebody asked me, can Brandon Wright be an every down defensive end? In other words, can he do well against the run? Well, there's not a lot to go on in the spring scrimmage. I went over it. Every time he was on the field, I looked to see where he was and what he did. And he was on the field, I think it counted 4 times he was on the field against the run. I think 5 times against the run. And not one of those 5 plays was the run play at him. So we really didn't get a chance to see him take it on, point of attack, leverage, play his gap, disengage. Does he stay strong against that stuff? Did he take on a double team? Never saw any of that. So I don't know. He took on, there's one time he's taken on a wham block on a split zone. Powers Warren was playing tight end. Powers Warren came on, and Wright did a pretty good job withstanding that wham block, but just like takes on the wham block and just maintains containment. And Wright kind of won that collision, but Powers Warren is not the most physical tight end. You watch Powers Warren lock up with the linebackers, and he doesn't normally win those battles either. He's a decent enough pass catcher, Powers Warren. He could get on the field a little bit, but he's not all that physical. Brandon Baldwin, one time Brandon Baldwin went down for a cut block attempt on Brandon Wright. Brandon Wright just kind of handled it. But I was surprised to see a cut block. I saw 2 cut blocks in the spring game. Brandon Baldwin one time went down, cut block Brandon Wright, and one time at right tackle, Spencer Brown cut, let's see, was it Piotrowski? You don't usually see cut blocks in spring games. Spencer Brown cut blocked Jacoby Windman. So that part was real football. One other time, Brandon Wright against the run, Jalen Berger outside zone play, but it was away from him. So Wright is unblocked, and it's away from him, so it's not like he has a chance to defeat a block and take it on a point of attack. That's what I mean. He was on the field for 4 or 5 run plays. None of the 5 was he tested at the point of attack. One other time, outside zone, once again, left unblocked. Another one, they ran a counter away from him. Jordan Simmons carries it, and he took on Ethan Boyd, but it wasn't at the point of attack. He just kind of backside containment. So we never really saw Brandon Wright. So I didn't learn anything about Brandon Wright's ability to be an every down defensive end in terms of being able to play the run. So I still don't know. I can't offer a decently educated guess on that. 23 commitments. We talked about Muddy's asking about 2023 commitments. I talked a little bit about the tight end, talked about Rucker. We've gone over a few of those. We'll continue to do those as we get toward December and signing day. Jay Bannon from Sterling Heights says, have you watched any of Bo Edmondson's tape? He's the quarterback out of Texas. Michigan State has commitment from him. 3-star quarterback. Lake Travis, right? Austin area. He says, and what do you think of him as a quarterback? And he says, which of the current commitments tapes do you like the most? Are you going to the Washington game? Yes, I am going to the Washington game. So a lot of people asking about commitments. We talked about him a little bit, talked about Parachek a little bit, talked about Rucker. But Edmondson, 6'2", 6'2.5". So he's not real tall, and when he runs around, he's not a great athlete. He's just kind of a good athlete, kind of an average athlete. If you're going to be 6'2" and an average athlete, you better have great accuracy. And your decision-making always has to be really good. There are signs that his decision-making is excellent, and he's playing in a sophisticated offense against sophisticated coverages. So that part of it gets analyzed a little better maybe than some other quarterbacks playing other places. And he's going to be enrolling in January, so he will be at Michigan State for spring practice next spring, which will help. But he shows signs of being able to make good, quick reads. If you look at his highlight film. I've not watched like an entire game, and that's really the difference maker. When you watch an entire game of a quarterback and you see the mistakes, you see incompletions, or are they locking on the same just one receiver, one read throw, which is what Justin Fields did throughout his career at Ohio State. One read throw. One read not open, running it. One read not open, running it. One read throw. Justin Fields. And then he played Indiana, and he was like, what are they doing? And he didn't play well against Indiana. And he goes to the Bears and struggles, and everybody's surprised. I'm like, did you watch his film? Edmondson. There's this one play they're playing at the Alamo Stadium. I don't know if it's Alamo Bowl or Alamo Stadium. But it says Alamo Stadium on the field. And he's back here, and he's whipping. His eyes are whipping around, and his feet are following. So, he's well drilled, of course. He's quarterback at Lake Travis. But when his eyes are whipping around, he's making reads quickly. And that's something Connor Cook did really well. Connor Cook processed things well. Sometimes he made mistakes and got away with it. But there's there's one play where at the Alamo Bowl Stadium, he's back, and I can't remember if he read left to right or right to left or how he did it. But his eyes are whipping around, and he came back to a backside dig. So he's looking over here at his front side, and he comes back here to the dig, knowing it was going to be there based on the coverage. It's boom, 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 and it gets out for a nice about 30 yards. But it was a sophisticated read and execution. That's a sign that he can make some reads. There's a touchdown play for 62 yards. They're playing a home game. It's man-to-man. He looks to the field side, and he had number 2 to the field running a corner route. But the slot defensive back had outside leverage on him, so the corner route was being taken away. That looked like that was a primary read initially. So he read that, and in an instant he came back to a go route by the number 1 on the short side of the field deep. And he makes a quick head snap around, makes the reads like Connor Cook, processes it quickly like Connor Cook. And even though Cook was reckless with some decisions, but he read some things quickly. But this guy's brain works fast. Edmondson, back here, corner route, outside, corner route, outside leverage, boom, go route, touchdown, 62 yards, and it was boom, boom. A good quick read on a 2nd and 10. He sees tight man-to-man to the short side. He quickly checks down to the running back on an angle route, which serves like a shallow crosser against man-to-man. And the play gets out for the 45-yard touchdown due to the quickness of his read and the quickness, the decisiveness. Sees tight man-to-man, goes to his man-to-man beater right now, 45-yard touchdown. And in terms of arm strength, he comfortably throws the 17-yard out to the wide side of the field. And he had touch on that 17-yard out to the wide side of the field with a flick on a line, touch. He didn't have to wind up and throw it. So that was good. Quick feet in the pocket to get his feet set and move a little bit, to get to a lane and let it fly. He has touch when rolling out to his right on a corner route. There's another play where there's pressure from a blitzer, and it's in his lap like right now. So he's off his back foot going backward. But sometimes you have to throw like that. I've seen in practice Michigan State for various coaches over the years. You're working on this. Now you got to work on the throw when you're off balance. And you could say, oh, man, he's thrown off his back foot. That's a mistake. But sometimes you have to. It's third. And if it's third down and crisis. On this one, blitzer's right in his lap, off his back foot, going backward, slot corner from the right hash to the opposite pylon, 27-yard touchdown, through from the 36-yard line to the opposite pylon. Pretty nice back foot right now. That was a pretty good throw. His touch passes are not like looped unnecessarily high. He has the arm strength to get it there with a flick. So I see some things there, but the accuracy needs to be perfect at his size and his average athleticism. So on a highlight tape, you're only going to see completions, right? So I want to see some full games and to see how often he just plain misses people, like Jared Goff just misses people. I don't know how big the dude was at Western Kentucky last year. I don't think he was very big. But I said after that game, that guy reminded me of Drew Brees. And I think he'd be – I said after they played Michigan State in September, I'm like, that's the type of guy to keep an eye on in the draft, that if I had a 7th-round pick, I would take him. But by the time the draft came around, he just put up crazy numbers, was invited to the Senior Bowl, did well, and got drafted earlier than that. But that accuracy, it's kind of a thing. So he needs to have accuracy with his size and average athleticism. But I like his ability to read, and I'm sure that's what Michigan State likes about him also. So you put him in the talent pool, you put him in the competition. His junior film is more impressive than Hampton Faye's was in terms of making reads. Hampton Faye was a big guy with a lot of ability. He was more like Connor Cook physically. Connor Cook in high school was a big guy, strong guy, but just a diamond in the rough. Had a long way to go and came around and did great things. But he had a quick brain, too. Connor Cook had a quick brain. Edmondson has a quick brain. Can process quickly. If the accuracy's there, then he'll compete. DSB23 Part Unknown says, if you do advocate for a cap on name, image, and likeness, is it even possible to sell or enforce? What number would be fair and equitable? I'm thinking $100,000 per year per player would be the cap, with some sort of maximum team cap. But it will be roundly dismissed. This is from DSB23 from Parts Unknown. He says, NFL is the model right in front of our face. Gads. I'm not sure if that's a question or just a soliloquy, but DSB23 from Parts Unknown is concerned about name, image, and likeness. And to answer your question, I don't know the answers. Someone smarter than I am is going to have to come up with the answers on these things. I've heard some people say that collective bargaining is the answer, to make them employees, make players employees, and then give them a contract, and then you have sets amount you can pay them. But even if that happens, you'll still have programs that are paying a little bit more under the table, right? That's never going to go away. And as soon as I hear collective bargaining for college players, you know what's coming next? Strike. There's going to be a college football player strike. So collective bargaining is employees. I don't know. But I don't know what the answer is. And I don't know where it's headed. But I will say this. When Don from DeWitt was talking about the transfer portal and the NCAA, what committee? Advisory committee said that they are in favor of just unlimited transferring. First of all, who are the idiots on this advisory committee? NCAA advisory committee. I'm picturing like Bozo and Oopsie the Clown and maybe even Ronald McDonald in there. That's who I think's on the NCAA advisory committee. It must be. Hey, we're just going to let everybody transfer all they want. It's lunchtime now. We're leaving early for the day. You guys figure it out. That might be the last straw, because there's a lot of athletic directors and coaches that think the NCAA, that know the NCAA is just done. Mark Hollis used to tell us that like 8-9 years ago. He's like, why do we still need the NCAA? I don't know if we do. For the basketball tournament, yes. It's good to have all the little schools in there. That gives it the flavor. But there's going to be so many athletic directors that are going to be upset about the specter of unlimited transferring for 4 years or 5 years, that could be the straw that breaks the NCAA's back, and there'll be athletic directors and conferences that are going to separate from the NCAA, which a lot of people have said is going to happen at some point anyway. That could be the thing that separates it. But the advisory committee is just recommending that. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. They're recommending that. You might see some athletic directors quietly tell the NCAA, you do that, we're out. We're going to, I don't know, but the problem is the conferences are so opposed to one another, like crime families, that they'll have a lot of trouble cooperating to break away. But at some point, the conferences are going to break away from the NCAA. A lot of people are predicting that. And when the conferences do break away from the NCAA, they will change the transfer rule. It won't be what the NCAA has. They'll change it somehow that it won't be free agency every semester. It's good that players have freedom, I guess. But, I mean, if you're going to have an organized sport, you need continuity from year to year. The Moneyball Pro-Am over at Holt High School, they don't have continuity from one year to the next, and no one expects it. These players are playing. We're going to divide up the teams this way. There's 2 Michigan State players on each team. Everybody has a point guard and a big man, and you just throw them out there. And then next year, you just throw them out again, and no one remembers who was on each other's teams the year before. There's not continuity. No one expects continuity. It's the Pro-Am. It's Moneyball. But in college football, you kind of expect, if you're a Michigan State fan, that next year, a lot of these guys you saw play last year will be back this year. Yeah, some graduate, some transfer. But you can't just have, for the health of the sport, if we still care about this, do we still care about the sport, or is it all about the individuals now? Do they still wear green and white? Do the Michigan guys still wear blue and yellow or whatever their color is? Or do they just are they just going to, does Ohio State still wear scarlet and gray, or is it going to be like Home Depot for, each player has their own jersey in each color, and they can just do what they want on their helmet. They can just hashtag me, whatever. I don't know. Do the teams still matter? Does Ohio State still matter? Does Oklahoma football? Yes, it still matters. That's still college football. And Dan Dockich made some real good points on Sirius Satellite yesterday when I guess Clifford, I forget Clifford's first name, the quarterback at Penn State, decent player, underrated runner. He's making demands that the players should get a percentage of this contract that the Big Ten is about ready to announce in the coming days or weeks. And Dockich rightfully laughed at him and said, you're demanding this, huh? Okay, don't play. Nobody's going to miss you. He makes the point, the reason you're anybody is because you're wearing a Penn State uniform and you are standing on the shoulders of the players that came before you. That's why anyone cares about you as a quarterback right now. If you don't think so, then go play for the football equivalent of the G League, which doesn't exist. Maybe the CFL. Go there and see how that turns out. Dockich made a good point. He said he was at the Final Four 1 year, and North Carolina was playing. This was like 5 or 6 years after Tyler Hansbrough was done. And there were a lot of North Carolina Hansbrough jerseys in the crowd. They're wearing Hansbrough jerseys. He goes to watch the Albany Patroons, or whoever it was that Hansbrough was playing for in the G League, and nobody there is wearing a Hansbrough Albany Patroon jersey. They're wearing the Carolina jersey for reasons we just stated. It's the tradition. It's the history of these programs. There's a lot of good football players playing in that USFL stuff. Nobody was there. Football, I mean, I watched a few of the plays. Didn't hold my interest. I'm sure there were a lot of good players or Michigan State players out there. But when they're playing for the Birmingham Stallions, there's just not that, that connection. You guys know this, right? This doesn't need to be explained to people. So, I'm kind of the, we've been built to think that the coaches are crooks and the programs are deceitful and dishonest, and there's a lot of that. There's a lot of corruption that goes on. But I kind of like old school uniforms, fight songs. Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, USC, Orange Bowl, things like that. Good that the players are getting some money, but it's not, everybody's like, hey, got to do it for the players. Yeah, they deserve some of it because the money's gotten so big. They do deserve some of it for sure. They deserve, yes. But it's still about the Spartan head of the helmet or the winged helmet. The Nebraska N. It's about the team first, I think. And if you lose that, I mean, I don't know. The programs still matter. Am I an old man yelling at clouds when I say that? That's the college football I fell in love with when I was 9 years old. And I know that there's been ugly things and all that, but that's my truth. Tell me if I'm an idiot. I apologize. What do we have here? We've got Brian from Flushing saying, do you see this sort of pay-for-play model that is currently wreaking havoc on the NCAA NIL deals being regulated in due time, he asks. He says, I believe what NIL was intended to present to college kids is being grossly abused, he says. Getting $20 for an autograph or a few grand to do some local car dealership commercial while they're already enrolled. That's a far cry from blatant booster cash funneling to influence recruiting. That's his soliloquy. And I agree with you. And Brian from Flushing is bothered by it. And DSB from Parts Unknown is bothered by it. And there's a lot of college football fans, old school college football fans, that are bothered by this. It's good for players to get money, but in terms of, recruits have been paid illegally for years. And the TV money has gotten so big, and the players are the product, and they are out there risking their spinal cords to play. So I understand that. And if the money got so big that they were entitled to some of that money. Woody Hayes only made about $50,000 a year. He might have made, 10 times the cost of tuition. Current coaches are making 300 times the cost of tuition, even with tuition being astronomical. As soon as that gap increased between the cost of tuition and what the coaches are making, then yes, players deserve some of that money. The TV money, it's so big. It's huge, right? It's an economic landslide going on here. And it's changing the face of college football. If USC and UCLA join the Big Ten and all the you've been hearing about it all summer. Conferences, realignment, all that stuff. Can't we just have a football game? Michigan State, Western Michigan, opener. Michigan State at Washington, old school, Big Ten at Pac-12. Good fun. That's what I'm talking about. I don't have answers for you, though. Question number 10, Doc from Las Vegas says, if Angelo Gross starts at nickel, who starts at safety opposite Xavier Henderson? If Gross starts at safety, who is our starting nickelback? All right, good question. I think Angelo Gross is going to start at safety. That's what it looked like in the spring scrimmage with Henderson. Like I said earlier, Gross has to really make some improvements in terms of just being able to read things and having that football IQ back there to have the same pageness going on. Very important in the safety position. Gross still needs to prove that. He says if Gross starts at nickel, who starts at safety? I don't think Gross is going to start at nickel, but I don't know. It's been a little bit of a revolving door back there with some of the players. In the spring, Darius Snow played linebacker and nickel. Chester Kimbrough played a lot of nickel. Justin White played a lot of nickel, and Justin White's an underrated player. I know Big Moobie likes Justin White a lot. He's got speed and everything. But in that spring game, there are a couple times when he just pursued, laid out, and made nice tackles. It's just nice to see that quickness running around out there. He's a nickel. He had that quarterback hit blitzing from the nickel position against Michigan, which led to an interception. Keep playing that game. So Justin White's around as a nickel, depending on what the offense does. He's a littler guy, but if you're playing Wisconsin, which they're not playing Wisconsin this year, but if you were, you might need to go bigger at the nickel position. Could be Gross, could be Snow. So the word is Gross is going to be playing safety like he did last year. He played safety in the spring. Would I be shocked if he's back at nickel? No, but all we can see is what we can see because they don't produce a depth chart. So all we know is what we see. And I'm thinking Gross is still a safety. Not confident. A good kid, hard football player. I need to see it to believe it, to know that he's got a handle on the whole situation back there. So if he's at safety, you're asking who's the nickel. I think it's going to be Kimbrough. But it could also be Snow against more physical teams. That's my guess. And at linebacker, you've got Halliday in there. Cal Halliday. Brule brings some athleticism. He's going to be in there. Jacoby Windman brings an excellent all-around game as a linebacker. He's going to be in there. I think Windman and Brule are going to start by October 1st, maybe even earlier. Halliday, I think, is going to be a good one. I think off the bench. I think Van Summern's going to do some things off the bench. In the spring scrimmage, Van Summeren came up and played as a stand-up edge guy a little bit as a linebacker. They did some 2, 4, 5 defenses with 2 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. They showed that a few times. With, let's see, I've got it here. Like one time they had Derek Harmon and Piotrowski as the 2 defensive linemen, and the outside edge linebackers, they were standing up like defensive ends, Van Summeren and Brule one time. And the inside linebackers were Snow and Halliday once. They had other versions of that. Halliday played some weak side linebacker with Van Summeren in the middle. I guess Halliday did some weak side linebacker last year with Crouch in the middle. They flip-flopped that back, and then Noah Harvey later in the year. Saw 3-3-5 with Barrow, Harmon, and Piotrowski, the defensive linemen. Again, Harmon and Barrow are defensive tackles, and Piotrowski's defensive end. Piotrowski's usually standing up, and they had Windman standing up as a edge outside linebacker. Windman. I think Windman's going to play a lot of inside linebacker, but in passing situations can come down and play edge. And the linebackers on that one were Brule and Nateote. But I could see Simeon, Windman, Jacoby Windman, the transfer from UNLV. I could see him being an inside linebacker on first and second down. And then in pass rush situations, I could see him going and being a stand-up edge because he's going to be one of their best pass rushers. And you've got enough depth there defensive at linebacker to bring in Halliday or something. Or someone. Brule. Brule might be starting. Van Summeren. Nateote. Snow. I think Windman's got the ability to be both. And Brule's going to do a little bit of it also. So there's some versatility there. And if you're roaming around, that can make it difficult for a quarterback or a blocking scheme to understand, is that guy an edge or is he a linebacker? It kind of changes the beat on things a little bit. When Scotty Hazelton was defensive coordinator at Kansas State, they always had a stand-up defensive end. Even though it was a 4-3, one of them was standing up. Based on what we saw in the spring scrimmage, I kind of think Piotrowski is going to be standing up all season. Just a guess. All right. As far as safety goes, I still have my eye on Ronald Williams. Ronald Williams was a pretty good corner last year. I think he can get better as he goes. He's got some size. I wonder about him possibly having ability to play safety. I've not heard that from any insiders, just my own speculation. I know Michigan State is thin at safety, in my opinion. I don't know that they are. That's just my opinion. You have Gross back there. You've heard what I said about Gross. Love him as a kid. Wish him the best. I'm just telling it like I see it. I could be wrong. Xavier Henderson, very good, especially when he's healthy. Jaden Mangum, true freshman. Saw him in the spring. Thin guy, needs to fill out, but he's got a good head on his shoulders. Rangy, angular guy. Moves well. He's going to be in the mix, but true freshman. A.J. Kirk, saw him this spring for the first time. Made some mistakes. Had great senior film in high school in Ohio. Didn't get on the field last year for various reasons. Has such great ability that don't close the door on him. Kendall Brooks, senior, transfer from that small school in South Carolina, got on the field a little bit last year in special teams, was basically repping as a second-string safety in the scrimmage. But I just don't, could he make a jump from not playing, barely at all last year to getting on the field as a safety? I think he looks okay, but he hasn't had that, hasn't gained that trust yet, apparently. However, now you've got Tucker and Barnett handling the whole thing. I mean, Barnett handled the safeties last year, so they know what Brooks is. Second string, third string. And then you've got some freshmen coming in. Last week, Malcolm Jones Sr. called the show. I think that's who it was, right? Malcolm Jones coming in as a freshman. He's a safety. Have to wait and see what he's all about. I know Dylan Tatum is around from West Bloomfield, but I told you it's going to take a while for him to learn how to play defense if he ends up staying in defense. I said that when I looked at his high school film. He just wasn't comfortable being a contact guy. Ball in his hands, good speed, good explosiveness. Skill player on offense. Wants to be a DB. Got a long way to go. Question number 11, Sparty 1981 says, is Darius Snow a nickel candidate still? Or is his move to playing one of the two middle linebacker spots, does that take him out of the running? Well, there's two inside linebacker spots. There's really just one Mike linebacker, and the other one's a Will linebacker, but they're both inside linebackers. And Snow's moved there last year, played nickel, played a little bit at safety against Ohio State. I think he played safety in the bowl game also. They took a look at it, and they're not moving back to nickel. They moved to linebacker, which is a surprise during the offseason. But in the spring scrimmage, he played linebacker and he played nickel. And he was playing at nickel. The one memorable play from the spring scrimmage was when he made a hit on Jackson Morse, walk-on tight end from East Lansing. Caught a little pass. I think in the flat, Snow came up, hit him, fumble. Jacoby Windman picks it up, returns it for a touchdown. On that play, Michigan State's playing zone. On that play, Darius Snow was playing nickel. I know they told us all year he was at linebacker, but on that play, he's at nickel. And he comes up and makes a nice cut, makes a nice break on the ball, sturdy, shoulder pad on the ball, nice play. So no, his days are not done at nickel. He'll play some nickel, he'll play some linebacker if we go by the spring scrimmage. Question number 12, Brian from Flushing, Michigan says, what are the chances Caleb Coley can have a breakout freshman year at corner, much like Chuck Brantley last year? Now, Caleb Coley, I watched him in the spring scrimmage a little bit more today, and he's a freshman that enrolled early as a corner. Last week Malcolm asked about him a little bit, and I knew they were on the field, but I didn't really have any strong thoughts about it because I hadn't really looked at it that closely. But Caleb Coley is from Warner Robins, Georgia, 6'1", 170. Was a 3-star coming in. He was ranked number 84 in the state of Georgia when Michigan State grabbed him. And he committed right on signing day. Caleb Coley. Was he he had been committed to Vanderbilt, right? He also visited Wisconsin. Anyway, watched him closely. Number 37, second string corner. Probably played, 10, 12, 15 snaps. There was one time they're in press coverage, did a good job in press coverage, inside technique, stopped and tracked Sebastian Brown, walk-on wide receiver, on a comeback route. Hauser targeted Joe Martinez instead against Justin White. But it was press man-to-man, inside technique, stopped, tracked, came on a comeback, and did a real good job matching that route. Caleb Coley, press coverage. It's one player against a walk-on receiver, but I'm looking, and number 37, Caleb Coley, looked like a corner on that play. Also did a good job, cover 4 zone, changing direction, breaking on a pass to the flat to Berger. He moved well to do that. So it's a small sample size, but he didn't look out of place. Ade Willie was playing corner on the other side. And there was one defensive backfield that was Coley, Willie, Mangum and Kendall Brooks as like the second string defensive backfield. The chances of him doing what Brantley did, Brantley had openings because last year Michigan State they were wide open at corner. Now it's going to be a little more competitive because all those guys are back. So I wouldn't expect him to start. Chuck Brantley started 1 or 2 games. I wouldn't expect Caleb Coley to start. But the corner position is a position where freshmen can come in and make immediate impact, sometimes surprisingly so. Dating back a number of years, you've seen it over the years. He looked okay, but I'm looking at Amir Speed. I'm looking at Ronald, what's his name, Wilson? I forgot his name already. For crying out loud. Ronald Williams. My bad. I'm looking at him. Amir Speed, of course. Chester Kimbrough in there at the nickel. I think Kimbrough can be better. He had some problems here and there, but St. Pageness was a problem. Chuck Brantley, if he can stay healthy. Not that health has been a big problem, but he's a little guy, and he hits hard. Is he going to break? Marquis Lowry, not bad. Then you have Coley coming in. There's going to be some competitions there, but it's not like the door is wide open for a freshman to come in. In other words, I think Caleb Coley looks solid. Looks like he's on schedule for a true freshman that reported early. Didn't look like a fish out of water to me. But, Speed and Ronald Williams, Lowry's going to have that experience on him. So, good question, but pump the brakes and have some patience there. Question number 14, Thursday, 1306 from Parts Unknown. He says, what's your prediction for the starting offensive line and who will get meaningful relief snaps, assuming we stay healthy, he asks. Starting offensive line, I got Horst at left tackle, I guess. J.D. Duplain at left guard. Spencer Brown at right tackle. Center and right guard. The candidates, you got Nick Samac, Brian Green, the transfer from Washington State, Matt Carrick back from the knee injury, Gino Vandemark, keep an eye on him. I think he's on schedule. One of those 4 is going to start at guard. I'm going to say Samac at center, but he needs to prove himself. This year, he was just kind of okay. We're not seeing his trajectory going like this. It's been kind of like this. In the Peach Bowl, he's kind of struggled. So Brian Green comes in from Washington State, going to compete with him. Green can play guard or center. If Samac doesn't get better, Green can start at center. And then at right guard, Carrick, Vandemark. Samac can play guard. So my guess is Samac at center, Green at right guard. And Carrick was pretty good as a backup last year before he got hurt. That's my guess. In terms of people coming in for relief snaps, well, Carrick is capable of doing it. Is Fincher ready? Fincher got a lot of run this spring. Is he ready to go in and play? And again, I think he probably could. I think you could get by with him. Offensive tackle, it's getting thin. Brandon Baldwin at left tackle in the spring game showed some abilities. He moves his feet well. Sometimes he bends his waist a little bit too much, gets out over his skis, lunges a little bit. He's got long arm, moves his feet well. He has the building blocks to be a functional left tackle. Has not seen the film at all. Has not seen the field at all in college football. So, Ethan Boyd, it's going to be a redshirt freshman at right tackle from East Lansing. He's moving well. He's got a frame. So those guys, I think, could be good, could be functional, but it's still thin ice there with those guys. Inside, you got Vandemark coming along. You got Fincher coming along as a center or a guard. Wigginton, I'm guessing, is a little bit behind Vandemark. Vandemark was looking good this spring, got hurt. We saw Wigginton in the spring game. Vandemark couldn't play in the spring game. But Vandemark, I think, is heading in the right direction. The freshmen coming in, like Ashton Lepo, they're excited about him, but we've not seen him yet, so I'm not sure. Question 16, Spartan Pride 94 says, without outing sources, what's the vibe and talk you are hearing in the football building about some schools and name, image, and likeness deals? Well, there are some suspects that keep coming up, the usual suspects over and over, with a lot of cash, a lot of good name, image, and likeness, organization, and mobilization. We've talked about them already. Miami, Oregon, Texas A&M, no surprises there. Louisville, Arkansas. Tennessee has a big collective. Ohio State's pretty solid. And Michigan State has been going against those schools over and over and over in recruiting this year and losing some recruits to those guys. But you're not hearing, like, Not hearing like Ole Miss or Mississippi State a lot in these, South Carolina. You're not hearing them come up all that much. So Michigan State, I had heard a few weeks ago that they were strong in that position. I hear that they still are. They're kind of holding their cards a little bit. But I don't think anyone's outspending Oregon and Miami right now, and Texas and Texas A&M. So what will that do to the top 10 in the future? I don't know. Georgia's going to be interesting too, right? I mean, Georgia and Alabama have been recruiting so well the last 2 or 3 years. Alabama the last 15 years. But Alabama can't spend with these schools, like I mentioned. Can Georgia? Can't spend with Texas. Can't spend with Texas A&M. And Georgia and Alabama were well coached. They went out and put together the best rosters by any means necessary. However, they got it done. They got it done. Had the best rosters, turned it into good football teams, won championships. LSU also. But now going forward, LSU, Alabama, Georgia, are they going to have the inside tracks toward continuing to have the best rosters? It's going to be a challenge. Miami's coming back at them. A&M stepping in there. Texas is stepping in there. It might be more dispersed over a number of schools. I mean, LSU is still going to do great in state. There's still going to be people growing up wanting to play for LSU, and they're going to be handing out money. They'll be solid. And Alabama, Georgia. But, for instance, I think I heard that like 2/3 of the top 100 players in the country last year, 2/3, 65 of them roughly, of the top 100 players last year went to 5 schools. That's what somebody said on a podcast the other day. Someone who follows that stuff. I've not double-checked his math. That's what he says. I take him in his word. 2/3 of the top 100 went to 5 schools. I don't think that's going to happen as much anymore. Those big money, Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas A&M, Oregon, Miami. Then you're going to throw Arkansas in there a little bit. Alabama, Georgia still going to get some. LSU still going to get some. Ohio State still going to get some. Notre Dame doing better than they've done in years. You're not going to have 3 or 4 dominant rosters, I think, in the NIL, the beginnings of the NIL era. I think the current powers, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, LSU, I think they're going to lose some of that roster strength, and it's going to dissipate and go to places like Miami and Oregon, A&M, Texas. We saw A&M have the number 1 recruiting class in the country last year, one of the best recruiting classes of all time in terms of rankings. Ohio State's still going to do damage. And we're waiting to see what Michigan's going to do. I don't know. Michigan State's going to be in there a little bit. They want to recruit at a top 5 level. They want to recruit at a national championship level. They're trying to figure it out, but it's going to be difficult. Question number 17, Joe from New Hudson says, hey, Comp, anything you can share about Dog Con, Spartan Dog Con? A lot of big-time 2024 kids are coming in as recruits, wondering what inside baseball you have on early indicators or connections with some of the recruits attending. It's just 2024s that are going to be coming in. They'll be checking it out. But as you see, you can be in on a top 200 kid, but it's going to come down to NIL. But you bring them in, you Spartan Dog Con, it's Spartan Dog Con. It's a conference. Spartan Dogs, former Michigan State players coming in. It's a reunion type of thing, but also recruits, a lot of togetherness, brotherhood, and what they can do to help each other, networking. So these recruits, I mean, Michigan State's committed to show, to put on great displays for visitors, presentations, and so forth to get them excited about being the Spartan Dog and the family and all that stuff. But that's all well and good if you can at least match NIL what they can get elsewhere. If you're even allowed to talk about that, or do you have a third party talk about it? It's all tricky, not sure. Question 18. Hey, Comp. I don't know who this is that wrote this one, but his question is, hey, Comp, without naming players or dates, can you let us know some of the crazy recruiting stories that you know about? Without naming players or when. I'll have to table that one. I'm not really sure. Yeah. And he says, how do you think Chris Bogle does this year? That's the defensive end transfer from Florida. Does he have the tools you talk about, running the hoop, etc.? Running the hoop, I'm still looking to see that. I don't know that he does not have it, but what he has is some wiry strength. How tall is he? How tall is that guy? Chris Bogle. 6'4", 240. At 6'4", 240, he's lean, but he has some good strength. Like in the scrimmage, I saw. Where are we at here? There was one time Brandon Baldwin was coming out on him in a zone run to Bogle's side. And Bogle was low, strong, long-armed him, maintained leverage, got upfield leverage, the running back to cut back inside. I know Brandon Baldwin is, he's still a young guy, reasonably strong. So you'd expect Bogle, who probably is going to be starting at defensive end, you'd expect him to be strong enough to take on a second-string offensive tackle who hasn't seen the field yet. So that's not like a definite example that he's can play the point of attack well. But it's better than a stalemate or getting beat. He got into him. He uses good technique. He's wiry, strong for a thin guy. Long-armed him. That looked pretty good. There's another time that he was very sturdy taking on, but it was Jacob Lefebvre, former defensive lineman who played. He's a walk-on who's playing offensive guard in the spring because they had a shortage of offensive linemen. He's taking on Jacob Lefebvre as a pull guard, and Bogle was just very sturdy with hit and shed and then making the tackle on kind of a split zone counter type of play. But in terms of winning collisions, Bogle sets himself upper body and lower body and does it correctly and does it with some wiry strength. I can think of some other defensive ends in the past in the spring game that just got like avalanched in those type of situations. So that's not bad. That doesn't guarantee he's going to be great, but solid with some of those. I thought that his takeoff looks pretty quick, and there's one time when he had a quick takeoff and then did a long arm on the backside against Ethan Boyd and kind of controlled things. But I've not really seen him do pass rush over and over and over. It seemed like he didn't get as many reps as Brandon Wright and Piotrowski. And Bogle was on the field a few times. I'd like to go back and count how many times he's on the field. Hey, in the spring scrimmage, the whole thing was maybe only about 30 reps, right? So I'd have to go back and look at his Florida film. But I can't say that he definitely can run the hoop and do all those things. I've not seen it, and I've not seen that he cannot do it. So didn't really see it in the scrimmage. Spartan Fan 81 said, you stated you were still reviewing the spring scrimmage and Brandon Wright stood out. Any other standouts from the scrimmage that impressed you? Brandon Wright did some things. Brandon Wright specifically, there was one time when he used his hands to get off a block by Evan Morris to get a thud on a running back during the thud period. Now, Evan Morris, walk-on, tight end, former kicker. It's not like you're defeating Gronkowski or something on that one. But he used his hands well to get off a block. So Brandon Wright, he's a running back, former running back, so he's got some speed and stuff. But the hands are coming together nicely for Brandon Wright, from what I can tell. Very quick on an inside move, beat Ethan Boyd for a pressure at one point. He showed a spin move and had the motor to keep pursuing to the sideline. That's one thing when the play gets out, he doesn't delay his motor. He just transitions straight, chasing it down. And you've seen some backside pursuit motor speed from him, and that keeps showing up. In the hands, I'm talking about the hands. There's one time I would characterize it as having violent hands with a shoulder club. It was a shoulder club into an arm over. And, defensive line coaches always talk about having violent hands. Ron Burton used to talk about that. And I think Brandon Wright is developing that. Shoulder club. Had good hands when he defeated that cut block attempt by Brandon Baldwin. But just that speed, and you're seeing some moves, a couple in the Brandon Jordan stuff, I think he's going to have some productivity as a pass rusher. Can he be an every down defensive end? Remains to be seen. Let's go back. Before we wrap it up, let's go back over here to the comments section. Lux says, we have fallen off hard, but still proud of what we have done. I think he's talking about recruiting. It's good that Michigan State fans have high expectations about recruiting. I'm not surprised that it kind of hit a wall a little bit, but I'm not crying in anyone's beer or whiskey. That's what Big Don has tonight. Tim Hughes says, I'm excited about transfers. Amir Speed, Chris Bogle, Berger, Broussard, Green, Windman, Brule, Daniel Barker looks great at tight end. I would agree with all that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 transfers. I think those guys, all 8 of those guys, are going to play a lot. I agree with you. Those transfers. I think as a whole, last year they got a lot out of Kenneth Walker. Everybody knows that. But I think this year's transfers as a whole are better because last year's transfers as a whole, Ronald Williams did some stuff. The corners were getting some footing, but there were a lot of transfers that really didn't figure into much. Quavaris Crouch started for a while, but he kind of petered out. Jarrett Horse started, had some problems later in the year. But all things considered, there were more transfers last year, but I think there's better quality this year. Roger Dodger says, first time to the show. Is this Sparta? Check out Roger Dodger. We got a new guy here. Everybody say hello to Roger Dodger. Thanks for joining the fun. Zachary Blair says, hi, go green. Aaron May says, comp. Have you heard anything regarding the running back competition? No, but we had a story at SpartanMag.com about a month ago. Talked to Ephraim Reed, Michigan State's new running backs coach. He says he has an idea how it's all going to filter out, but of course he wasn't going to tell anybody. But everything in the scrimmage, it was kind of vague as to who number 1 was. I know they're excited about Broussard. He's not been in pads yet. He was not there for spring practice. Broussard has vision, cutting ability, quickness. Berger at Wisconsin was kind of okay, but never became what he was supposed to. But now that he's got the second chance at Michigan State, great strength program at Michigan State now. With what they did with Kenneth Walker, can that help get the best out of Berger? I would say so. I think that's your 1-2 punch, those two guys. They came here to do that. Elijah Collins has been the guy in the past. I don't know. I think he's still odd man out a little bit. Jordan Simmons led the team in rushing in 2020. I think he's odd man out a little bit. Davion Prim, heard a lot of good things about him in the spring, and we go back and look at the scrimmage again. You can see that he cuts and gets upfield into the pile, which surprises me. I didn't think he looked that great as a high school senior. I was not surprised that he didn't really figure into anything last fall. I am surprised that he played to rave reviews in the spring scrimmage and during spring practice. And in the scrimmage, I saw some of that. I was showing Matt Dorsey where I'm like, this is probably what they're talking about right here. But it's a crowded running back picture. But I think Broussard and Berger were brought here to do those things. Harold Joyner, I think you might be able to see him do some more slash stuff, Connor Hayward type of things. Maybe not as well as Hayward did, but Joyner's an athlete. You can get him to the ball. He made some plays in that Penn State game. Was it a third down conversion he made? Real nice play. And I think he had one in the Peach Bowl too. I should probably watch the Peach Bowl again tonight just to get reminded of what happened most recently. I'm big on what happened most recently. That's why I'm looking at the spring scrimmage again. Tim Hughes says, nice hike. Got a nice hike in and beach time. Tim Hughes says, come on up to TC Comp. Traverse City. I might let you know, Tim Hughes. I need to go up north. Usually I'm up at Mackinac Island for a few days. Didn't go this year. And I'm missing it, man. I want to see Jack Pines. I want to see some Jack Pines. You hear what I'm saying? I want to get up there, cool down a little bit. Smell those pine trees. Wonderful place. So we got to hike in, got some beach time, man. So, Tim Hughes, were you beach time at the Bay or over there by Empire, or where were you? What beach? Come on, you're holding out on us a little bit. Good for you, though. MSU number 1 fan says, do you think that Tucker will use all 4 quarterbacks in the Akron game? No. Zachary Blair says, who do you think will be our number 1 running back we lean on in big games this season? Go green from Marshall, Michigan. I think it's Broussard and Berger, and it's the old-fashioned who's hot. Berger was a 4-star guy out of New Jersey, had a lot of fanfare there early in his career against Wisconsin, fell out of favor there a little bit. has something to prove to himself, I think, a little bit now. But even in looking at his high school film and things for Wisconsin, I'm not sure Berger has a lot of make you miss shiftiness. Maybe I'm wrong about that. And if you get good blocking, if you put a foot in and cut and just go straight north and south, you can get a lot of productivity out of somebody that does that too. But the vision and elusiveness of Broussard, I think, is good. But Broussard needs to stay durable. There were some durability questions from other people, not internally around here at Michigan State, but people elsewhere. So Broussard, durability. Berger, does he have some agility? Elijah Collins, is he still driven to be everything he can be? Great teammate? Not sure. But my guess, Collins is a great teammate, but does he have other things in addition to that to show a semblance of what he was in 2019? Not sure. My guess is Broussard's got to stay healthy, though. Roger Dodger says, budget your NIL. How does one know the money cap? We don't know. NIL, there's a lot of secrets in there. Ohio State's coach Ryan Day said at an Ohio State booster meeting that he estimates it would have taken $13 million to fund his current roster. So that gives you an idea of what some people are saying and what some programs are budgeting. So, but nobody's saying publicly what they have or what they plan to have, but that's what's going on. Tim Hughes says depth chart shows Berger Broussard as number 1, number 2 running back. I think that's what I put in Athlon's, but there is no official depth chart. Any depth chart that you see is not the actual depth chart because Michigan State does not publish a depth chart. At press conferences, at games, in the old days, they hand out a depth chart, and as time went on, those depth charts became more and more fudgy, right? But any depth chart you saw is just a forecast. MJ says, hello from Hong Kong. It's good to have MJ again. Mr. Bowman says, does anyone know anything about Daniel Cantor? He is a senior AE at Michigan State. He reached out to fans on Facebook and wanted to know how to improve the game day experience. I said, bring back smoking. Jeff Thoman said, I had a nightmare this weekend that Michigan State lost at Washington 36-33 and allowed Penix to go 26 of 29 for 363 yards. Tell me this was just a bad dream and our secondary won't be that bad again. I'm seeing a lot of 3s and 6s in there. So I'm going to go buy a 3-digit lottery ticket is what I'm going to do. But secondary, Penix 363 could happen. MJ says, where's Big Movie? I talked to Big Movie a lot. We're going to have to bring him back maybe later this week or next week. He's excited to talk some football. Mr. Bowman says, more porta potty and drop the price to park. They do need more porta potties out there for tailgaters, right? MJ says, what's everybody's prediction on the upcoming season? I say 8-4. Tim Shumbo says, get Zach Smith on the show. Menace to Sports. I heard, Zach Smith, that's the guy that got in all that trouble with Ohio State. I heard him on the Mad Dog show a few times here locally. Mad Dog is retired and moved away. We love the Mad Dog. Good friend of mine. And he had Zach Smith on, and I agree it was entertaining because Zach Smith would say anything and everything. And you know what? When it comes time to play Ohio State, maybe I will bring him aboard. Even though I wasn't real proud about Zach Smith and a lot of things we heard, but things we hear aren't always the truth. I'm not sure. So now that I say that, I'm a little conflicted on things. But he knows his football. He's a former assistant coach at Ohio State. And he'll tell it like it is. I'm going to have to write that down. That's a good idea. I have to make a judgment call on how I feel about that. Gosh. That's a tough one. Because he is very... When I would hear him on the Mad Dog show, I would not turn the dial. If I was driving somewhere and I got somewhere and I parked, I waited until the segment was done before I shut off the car and went to go do what I was going to do. He's a little bit of a loose cannon, but he knows his football. He's not afraid to talk. Mr. Bowman says, Jim, are the renovations at MUN finished? I think they are, but I've not seen them yet. Good question. Tim Shumbo says, I think Michigan State shuts out Ohio State 63-0. Somebody check what he's drinking. Nobody's shutting out Ohio State. Tim Hughes says, MJ 8-4 works for me. Tough schedule and the offensive line depth, along with unproven secondary, are concerns. Last season, we won 4 one-score games. Cannot count on that. Tim Hughes. Tim Hughes has a good rational viewpoint on the world in general and college football. I think being up there breathing that Traverse City air will do that to you. It can give you a lot of wisdom. Tim Shumbo says Michigan State will definitely beat Ohio State. Ohio State has no good returning starters. I know C.J. Stroud's pretty good. Smith and Jigma's pretty good. Trevion Henderson, running back's pretty good. Ohio State's going to be just fine. Mr. Bowman says 9-3 works for me. Beating Michigan always is a plus. MJ says, realistically, K9 won us at least 6 games last year. I wouldn't disagree with that. Jesse Adams says, Jesse from Mount Pleasant, my question is, do you think this staff will keep recruiting guys that they wanted, but the kid is committed elsewhere? I think they will be able to flip Kirkland. All right, good question, good point. Yes, they will continue to recruit some recruits that have committed elsewhere, but I don't think Kirkland's going to be one of them. I think Michigan State was kind of weirded out by some of the flakiness coming down the stretch there. MJ says, Brandon Waite, biggest sleeper of all. Brandon Wright says, Brandon Wright, biggest sleeper of all. Okay. Jesse Adams says, Elliott Washington and maybe Caleb Presley, who's committed to Oregon. What do you think? Caleb Presley, like I posted before, Michigan State liked him, but I'm not sure he was as high on Michigan State's war room as he is in the rankings. Elliott Washington committed to Penn State. Yeah, I could see Michigan State continuing to recruit Elliott Washington. Keegan Golan says, who are our next big offensive line targets? Talked about that earlier in the show. Good question, Keegan. Still going after Miles McVay. He'll be deciding on August 11th. It's Michigan State and Oregon. Alabama's in there a little bit, but Alabama's filling up. Alabama may not still be going after him. Stanton Ramel out of Alabama, 6'7", 3-star guy. Michigan State likes him. It's Michigan State, Tennessee, Penn State, maybe Clemson. Taliafi from Sandy, Utah. I need to remember that name because he might be a Spartan. 6'7", 280. Number 5 ranked player in Utah. Michigan State's in there. And also Charlie Simons is a commitment to North Carolina State, offensive tackle from Watertown, Connecticut, Taft School. So those are the ones. We will keep you posted if any others surface. 09 says, hey, give me some chips. Would somebody get 09 some chips, please? Tim Hughes says, disagree, Tim. Ohio State is loaded and ranked number 2 nationally. Will be rough day in East Lansing. I kind of agree with Tim Hughes. Once again, Tim Hughes. Check out the big brain on Tim Hughes up there in Traverse City. He's got his flip-flops on. He's in one of those big Adirondack chairs. Listening to the Bear FM. No, he's not. He's watching SpartanMag Live. Matthew Latham says, Comp should have told everyone to go grab a beverage. Dead air, problem solved. You're right. I should have done that. It's my bad. We learn as we go. Yeah, it would have been a good idea. Thanks, Matthew. Matthew runs our MUN hockey board at SpartanMag.com. Talking Michigan State hockey over there. Hopefully there's more to talk about here in the coming months and years. Zachary Blair says, what do you think is the chance we win our division and go to the Big Ten championship game in Tucker's 3rd season? Chances? I mean, you got Ohio State there, right? Ohio State's got an 80% chance to win this thing again. So, 10%? I know that doesn't sound very good, but Big Ten East is tough. Mainly because Ohio State's one of the top 3 teams of the country. Didn't finish that way last year, though, did it? Defense was not good. Who'd they lose to last year? Non-conference game. Looked terrible. Oregon, right? Then they fired the defensive coordinator halfway through the season. Then when they played Michigan, it got below 29 degrees, and all those Sun Belt receivers and passers all of a sudden couldn't function. That's what happened in that game. But Michigan was up for it, played well, played physical. Good for them. Flash says, will our new kicker be clutch? That is the biggest question of the season, in my opinion. Jack Stone coming in, true freshman from Texas. Asked Mel Tucker about it after the spring scrimmage. Tucker said kicking's going to be fine. No way of knowing. I mean, a kicker goes haywire, and an 8-4 season can become a 5-7 season like that. I can't snap left-handed. I don't go left. I don't go left with a snap. I can only go right. I can barely do that. I suck at snapping fingers. Doors Fan 91 says, I'm buying LSU with Brian Kelly at the helm. He has one and one big at every stop. I don't disagree with you, Doors Fan 91, and I like your hair. Speaking of which, Jim Morrison. Look at that Jim Morrison thing. That Jim Morrison look right there, if you don't mind me saying, is timeless. That look right there never went out of style. From 1968 forward. I'm not saying I could get away with that look. I'm not saying it's always been totally mainstream. But you could look like that at any time from 1969 to 2022, and it's a good look. You can't say that about a lot of people. You can't say that about Rod Stewart. Look at his hair in 1972. Fine, but you can't wear it like that in 1994. And then he did all kinds of, he didn't know. He should have done a Jim Morrison, stuck with it. John Bon Jovi, everyone, the ladies loved his hair back in 1988, right? And, by 1995, he cut it off, and that was a big controversy, whatever. He changed with the times, right? But what he looked like back in 88, he couldn't stick with that. Had to move. Jim Morrison, timeless. It's my fashion analysis for the night. Anyway, I do not disagree with you about Brian Kelly and LSU. I agree with those people that say that he's not a good fit. So what? He's a great coach. He knew he wasn't a great fit, but he wanted to go somewhere where he could put together a roster that could compete with Alabama and Georgia. And he didn't feel he could do that at Notre Dame. Goes down there, and then all this NIL stuff hits the fan. So now, was he planning to go down to LSU? Of course, NIL was already done when he went to LSU. But was he thinking in terms of LSU, like, I'll go down there and I'll just cheat like everybody else and I'll have one of the three best rosters in the country and win national championships? I'm not sure if LSU has that. They've always been able to recruit. It's a turnkey program. You just go there and you just have all these great players from Louisiana automatically. And then you try to get some guys from Houston, some guys from Georgia, and boom. You've got one of the top 10 rosters in the country every single year. It's a place where the tail can wag the dog. He's a little bit more of an institutional control type of guy. I don't think the tail's going to be wagging the dog down there a whole lot. But I don't disagree. I'll say this. I think that those in the South who assume he's going to fail because he doesn't talk Southern, or he failed trying to talk hillbilly or whatever it's called, I think that they may be sadly mistaken. Those were the same buffoons who said that Urban Meyer had no chance to succeed at Florida because his offense at Utah would never work in the SEC. How'd that turn out? Brian Kelly can run an outfit. He can run an organization. He's great with quality control, evaluation, all those things. And he's a football-first guy. And at Notre Dame, he had to do a lot of other things. He had to be a politician at Notre Dame. LSU is difficult in different ways. Notre Dame is tough. You lose a game and people panic. LSU, you lose a game and they want to drown you in the nearest swamp or whatever they have down there. So, excellent coach. Wouldn't have thought he would be attracted to LSU. But I don't disagree. And I don't like LSU as an institution. And I didn't like Brian Kelly as a person when he's at Notre Dame. But for some reason, I'm rooting for him down there. Could someone explain the psychology behind that? That's my truth also. 2 negatives equal a positive? I'm kind of rooting for him down there. Just to turn the crap all upside down and just ruin all the furniture and break all the windows. kind of rooting for Brian Harsin at Auburn, too. Both those guys came off pretty good at SEC Media Days last week. Brian Kelly talked about the fake accent and all that stuff and owned it and made fun of himself and diffused that whole thing, did it well. Harsin, took on his offseason situation well when they tried to get him fired with some what proved to be inaccurate, bogus allegations about him having a fling with a staffer. Complete falsehood. Just trying to get him fired. He survived that. He was not a real good fit hire for Auburn, coming from Boise. And, Auburn ran Gus Malzahn out of town. He's a good coach. So, Harsin, I think everybody knows, with their schedule, he's just not going to survive. But I'd kind of like to see him survive. I don't know. All right. Mike B says, if a large sum of NIL money became available, do you think any of the guys we lost might change their mind? Yeah. But Kirkland, I don't know if Michigan State would circle back. Okunlola, the money's going to be too big at Miami. You don't pay an offensive lineman what they're going to pay. Besantis, but A&M, if you came up with more money, then A&M would just raise their money. So I don't know if you outspend A&M for Besantis. If you're talking about those three players. And Okunlola, I don't think is officially committed to Miami yet, but he will. Good question, though. Slim Pickens says probably be some surprises and some disappointments as usual. Looking forward to the surprises. Go green, go white. Gonna Sparty stickers on my car and drive to Bradenton. Slim Pickens. You can tell he's having a good July. Ross Blacker says, what number did you hear A&M gave Besantis? I didn't hear a number for him. Good question, though. Brad Fishenko says, Lake Austin plays in one of the early ESPN games this year, August 25th or 26th. Thanks, Brad and Lake Travis. And remind me about that, Brad. Remind me about that. August. I'm going to put that in my calendar. Thank you for mentioning that. I'm glad you guys know this stuff about when high school these games are, because I don't. I need to go back and watch some of those Fears games, Jeremy Fears games in the USA a week or so ago if I have time. Thank you. Hopefully I'll get a chance to watch that. Mark Latang says Baker Mayfield played at Lake Travis. Is that where Nick Foles played also? And Drew Brees? Tim Hughes says, Zachary, I like Tuck's chances in year 5. 09 says, no, you are not an idiot. Noah Sprunger says, good evening, folks. It's great to have Noah here. Intern extraordinaire for SpartanMag.com. 09 says, it's a team sport. Noah Sprunger says, hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you, Noah. Appreciate that. We got about 90 likes right now. We got a thumbs down. That's too bad. That hurts my feelings. Oh, well. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I respect that. Salim says, what did I miss? Well, Salim, you need to go back and just rewind when it's over and you can see what you missed. Carter 917 says, they do play Wisconsin. See, I don't even know the schedule. So, thank you, Cartero 917. Michigan State, Wisconsin. How do I not know the schedule? When I was a younger man, when I wore a younger man's clothes, I knew that schedule. Boom. I'm sure a lot of you know the schedule like the back of your hand, to use a cliche. And I don't know if my brain just doesn't work as much anymore. Or I've got more things going on. There are more things going on. Noah Sprunger said, wouldn't rule out Mangum or Malik Spencer and some of the other freshmen at safety. I would agree with that, especially Mangum. Now, Spencer didn't play in the spring. He was not an early enrollee, so Mangum would have an inside track on that. Steve Meyer says, hi from McKinney, Texas. Great to see you back, Jim. Great to see you, Steve. George Page, former keyboard player and guitar player for Surrender Dorothy, one of the top 25 bands in East Lansing history, says, tuning in from Kauai, Hawaii. You're coming in clear as day. Stay tuned for Surrender Dorothy reunion. Thank you, and I hope it's in February on a Saturday, if I can say that myself. And I've been chatting around with some of my 50 Fest friends, and there's some intrigue there. But you got to tell me, with the reunion, is it both girls or just one? Noah Sprunger, Williams. Thank you, Ronald Williams. That's my brain for you. C-Dog says, NIL officially made college football a professional sport, in my humble opinion. Yes, it is. Tim Hughes says, Ohio State, Wisconsin, by Michigan, tough 3-game stretch. So that's Michigan State's schedule. How do I not have their schedule memorized? The 28-year-old version of James Comparoni would have the damn thing memorized and wouldn't make that mistake about Wisconsin. Disappointed with myself. C-Dog says Texas A&M has a ton of money, huge general endowment fund, as well as athletic department funds, etc. Yes, they do. 6'4". Thank you on Bogle. Douglas, he says, anybody talking about Michigan's easy JV schedule with 8 or 9 home games? Yeah, Michigan's schedule it's just cowardly. They're cowards. They're absolute cowards. Michigan, they're cowards. It's a paper program, and they're cowards. Tell me I'm wrong. C-Dog says, I have faith in Coach Cap. I mean, hey, I'll rewind a little bit. If they win another couple Big Ten titles, okay, I'll give them credit for that. They've won a lot of Big Tens over the years on paper. They've won 11 national championships, 7 of which are on paper. 1901, I mean, there was no television. There was no radio. They apparently won a national championship in 1901. Did anyone here see that happen? They won the 1901 national championship, 1902, 1903, whatever it was. There wasn't even a phrase called national championship. That phrasing didn't even exist. You go back and read the Detroit News in 1901. It never said Michigan wins national championship. They were awarded that national championship retroactively 30 years later, when most of the people on that team were dead. All due respect, but it looks good on paper. It's good. I'm glad they're in college football. It's fun. It's got the band and the uniform in the stadium. It's good. Good for the flavor. It's good. But that schedule is just cowardly. Cowards. You know, they had a good team last year. I give them credit for that. That's good. They might be good again this year. Probably will be pretty good. And that schedule allows them to rack up a lot of wins before they play anybody. And then by that time, everybody will have half the team winning the Heisman. And then, maybe they do beat Ohio State again. I doubt it. They beat Michigan State this year. Michigan State's confident. We'll see. But the schedule is just cowardly. And I'm not sure the rest of the nation has really figured that out yet. That they're just... If you put a schedule like that together, you're a coward. I mean, they can say it's smart. It might be effective. But they can't say they're not cowards. C-Dog says, I have faith in Coach Cap to have his guys ready. He will do the best he can with what he has to work with. I agree with that. And I wonder, just like the media in general, will media point out that the Michigan scheduling is cowardly? Will they ask Harbaugh or Ward Manuel if they feel like cowards, if they're ashamed of this schedule? Because they should be. Are there lies that go with this? Are they going to claim like they scheduled Arkansas, but Arkansas pulled out, so they put Hawaii in instead, or whoever it is they play? I don't know, but they're cowards. I mean, I don't care what they do, but I don't care. But it is what it is. They're cowards. Don Juan says, any word on Taliafa Atala commitment timeline? I'm not hearing a timeline, but I'm hearing Michigan State's in solid shape there. Cartero 917 says, anything on how the second string quarterback competition is going? I've not heard, and I watched that scrimmage closely in the spring, and the way they rotated the quarterbacks, it was hieroglyphics, and it was shrouded, and there was no way to tell based on how they were coming on the field as to who number 2 was. I kind of thought that they'd have Peyton Thorne take the first string reps and maybe another series, and then they were going to trot out the number 2 quarterback. But instead, they began the scrimmage with I can't remember how they did it, but it didn't. There was no tells at all. even at the end when they did the 2-minute drill at the very end, which is the way you wrap up a scrimmage practice a lot of times, Peyton Thorne, was it Thorne? Let me see here. I think it was Thorne at the end, right? What do I remember about that scrimmage? No, we're not taking any phone calls. Let me fast forward this thing to the end. Where are we at? Yeah, it was Thorne. So this was the end of the scrimmage. Oh, wait. That was the end of the scrimmage right there. So it was Thorne. So even the end of the scrimmage, they had Peyton Thorne do the 2-minute drill. And, you know, if they would have come out and done another 2-minute drill like you normally see at a scrimmage, then which quarterback was going to get that second crack with a 2-minute drill scrimmage? We didn't know because they didn't do it because they wanted to keep it a secret. I kind of think it's going to be Noah Kim. You know, looking at Caden Hauser in that scrimmage, you know, he's got ability and everything, but he kind of missed on a couple of things. Missed some open receivers and just getting comfortable. Hampton Faye's a big, strong guy with speed, but the learning slope is not quite there yet. I think Noah Kim has more of a solid grasp on those things. I'm not sure his ceiling is as high. Quite frankly, the staff didn't recruit him. I don't know if that has a factor or not. It shouldn't. They seem like fair people. They are fair people, but I don't know. I don't know. What about Noah Kim? I had some Noah Kim notes from the scrimmage. Just when I went back over it again. In the 7-on-7, there was a hitch versus off coverage. He made a quick read, quick release, good zip, no wasted motion, perfect accuracy. That was a good play. Negative, he missed Jeremy Bernard on an out route to the wide side. For a plus, he had a 47-yard deep ball touchdown to Jaden Reed, one-handed catch against Chuck Brantley, pretty good coverage, very, very good accuracy. That was 7-on-7, no pass rush. Negative, he took a sack from Maverick Hansen with a sack. It was a kind of a coverage sack, but on that one he had Christian Fitzpatrick was open on a shallow crosser, but Noah Kim on that play stayed with the front side route combination too long, and Maverick Hansen with a touch sack. So the processing wasn't quick enough on that one. Just a snap or two later, he held the ball a little bit too long again on an incompletion. Defense wasn't man-to-man, and he was looking up that crossing route. But that was the play I mentioned earlier in the show tonight when Snow and Halliday, they were in zone coverage as linebackers. Everybody else was man-to-man, and it negated the windows as he's going through, and he had to throw it out of bounds. I don't know if anyone else was open on that. I think that was good coverage, and it surprised him a little bit, so that one might not have been on him. Caden Hauser, he made a mistake on a pass to Trey Mosley. He threw an out route when Mosley ran a comeback, and that was versus a half a field in cover 4. Young guy, so the receiver zigged, he threw a zag in some ways. He threw behind Kid McDonald on a shallow crossing route, so there was an accuracy problem on that one. And one time he just plain missed Christian Fitzpatrick on a 14-yard out to the wide side, incomplete, and he clapped his hands in frustration after the incompletion, so he was not happy with himself on that. Caden Hauser, I love his ability, but I just mentioned some of the negatives that day when I went back over it. Hampton Faye had a really good scramble to throw on the run to Joe Martinez. Throwing on the run, it's kind of a freelance crossing route type of thing. That was a good play, but Hampton Faye was inaccurate once or twice, didn't get as many snaps. But who's the number 2 quarterback? I'm guessing here's the Cade McDonald pass right here. Just kind of missed him. I don't know. I would have thought kind of think it's gonna be Noah Kim, but I thought Peyton Thorne was gonna start in 2020, and they started Rocky Lombardi, so I don't know. Douglas says recruiting in college football is a marathon, not a sprint. A lot different from college basketball. Tim Hughes says, Sea-Dog, I agree, but offensive line depth against Ohio State, Wisconsin, Michigan, Penn State, we are very thin when injuries stack up. East Bay, Tim Hughes says. The East Bay, the Grand Traverse Bay. Nice. I can picture it. Good for you. Spartan MD says, late to the party, gentlemen. So that'll be a demerit for Spartan MD. He is late. That's his second tardy of the summer. He's hailing from steamy West Bloomfield. Gary Lewis says, at Roger Dodger. Looks like a peace sign. Gary Lewis says, Tuck knows Broussard from Colorado. Yes, he does. Broussard redshirted that year that they were at Colorado with an injury, but they had him during the spring on the field. Bear Doors Fan 91 says, Berger quit listening to the coaches because he was upset Wisconsin brought in that transfer running back from Clemson. They booted him since he wasn't willing to take coaching. I heard something like that too. Might have been late to a meeting once or twice. Dismissed from the team. Not a good look. So he's got a lot to prove. Don Juan, let's see. Gary Lewis says, sounds like Prim and Collins moved up the depth chart. I don't know where you guys are talking about this depth chart. Was there something that I didn't see? Mel Tucker has not released the depth chart since the day he took the job. There is no running back depth chart. Don Juan said, are we still looking for defensive tackle? What's the word on Caden McDonald, or is Terrence Green still locked into Oregon? Terrence Green is looking pretty strong to Oregon. Yeah, I think that one is, from what I hear, that he's going to Oregon, and they gave him an offer that was pretty strong. They're doing a good job with their NIL. Kazoo Green said, just spent a week on the East Bay. Little cool that week, but still a great week. Traverse City is a part of our summer every year. Good for Kazoo Green. Gary Lewis says, Oregon ran the ball all over Ohio State. Yes, they did. I studied that game after it happened because I couldn't believe it. And it was Kerry Coombs. And that was coaching and preparedness and lack thereof. Mark Letang says, Drew Brees played at Lake Travis. Westlake, their rival. Lake Travis and Westlake, I get those two mixed up. Sharice Armistead says, go Ohio State. Noah Sprunger at Kazoo Green. Love Traverse City and the surrounding areas. Always find time to spend some time up there each summer. Sharice Armistead said, Ohio State has beaten Michigan State in 7 straight seasons. Sharice is not very nice. Spartan MD says, U of M's schedule is like old Wisconsin schedule. Yeah, Wisconsin definitely built their program by beefing up on weaker opponents. So did Kansas State. Wisconsin doesn't do that much anymore, but not a bad idea. Hunter Frisbee says, let's go. Hunter Frisbee says, holy crap, comp is on a heater. I don't know what that means. Spartan MD says, at Kazoo Green, any new restaurants check out in Traverse City. Haven't been there since pre-COVID. Lori Williams says, biggest fear is offense reverts back to its 2019 scoring struggles. Second fear is secondary. Last year was magical with K9. Points well taken. Gary Lewis says, Nick Foles, Austin Westlake. Gary Lewis says, Michigan State in 2022 is 6-6 or 7-5. Ooh, I don't doubt it, but that hurt a little bit. Gary Lewis says, 22 Michigan State, a lot of variance around win-loss record. Worst case, 5 wins. Best case, 8 wins. I think that's what I said last year. I think 5 wins to 7 wins. Turns out I was pretty wrong about that. Tyrus Thomas says, when is picture day? I don't know. Last year they had picture day at the stadium, but you couldn't interact with the players because it was still the COVID thing going on. But they had that open practice in the stadium, and it was great. It was a legit practice. That was the day we looked at it and said, dude, Cal Halliday is going to start if you watched closely. It was revealing. It was great. I hope they do that again. I think that was wonderful. And it was so cool that I kind of thought more fans could and would come out if it was like that every year. But I don't know if they're going to have like an old school picture day for fans signing autographs and posters and all that. Probably not. Lori Williams says, I agree with Gary Lewis. Michigan State 6-6. Our offensive line is going to be a major problem. I don't necessarily agree with that. If Jarrett Horst comes back and has everything, has all the tires on the tread on the ground, or tires on the track, or wheels on the bus. If Jared Horst has all his pieces together and everything's good, left tackle, he's functional. J.D. Duplain, functional plus a left guard. Spencer Brown, if he plays like he did in the bowl game, solid. Spencer Brown made some mistakes in that scrimmage, though. The spring scrimmage needs to be better. Good kid. I assume he will be. Carrick, Green, Samac, got some work to do there. Kapilovic is good. Very good. Got some stuff to work with there. Not great ones. Some experience, but I think they'll be okay. I don't think it's a major problem like Lori Williams says. Kazoo Green says, Spartan MD, we rent a condo and end up cooking most meals. Made a trip out to Boone's Long Lake Inn for dinner on the deck. I believe the owner is a Spartan, by the way. Kazoo Green says, several trips to Moomers as well. Between the big steaks and ice cream, I came back and I'm hitting the salads and oatmeal hard. Moomer's ice cream, ladies and gentlemen. Moomer's ice cream. Gary Lewis says, Hauser missed badly on one throw during spring scrimmage. Hope he advances over the summer. Yeah, you got to give him some time, right? Comp says, other than quarterback, what is the one position group where injuries would expose MSU the most? Offensive tackle, defensive end, safety. That's where they're thin. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. It's midnight. Keeping it under 3 hours. No phone calls today. Got 100 thumbs ups. And we're happy that everybody showed up to participate. Spartan Mag Live today. Hope everybody has a good day. We will keep you posted as we head toward Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis. Myself and Paul Kondak will be down there. I haven't seen Paul in a long time. Looking forward to that. Once again, it was great to see Matt Dorsey this week coming into East Lansing. We look forward to talking to him soon and getting his expertise on a lot of things. He's got a lot of educated opinions on a lot of matters, so got a lot of respect for him. Good guy, good friend. Good to see him. So, anyway, thanks for... It was at Martinez and Straight with personal sponsorships, tips in the jar. Appreciate that. Appreciate the heck out of that. Appreciate everybody coming in, the thumbs up, the subscriptions. Go to SpartanMag.com if you're not already a subscriber. Become one in time for preseason football camp. Get into August. It's going to be fun. We'll be back soon with another edition of Spartan Mag Live coming up soon. It won't be a 3-week late again. It won't be a 3-week wait again next time. We'll see you soon. In the meantime, have a great Sunday night, great week. Enjoy your week. Well, next time you see me, most likely will be the VCast at SpartanMag.com from Indianapolis. Big Ten Media Days coming up. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Take care.